Okay, should be live. Let me know in the chat. Everything looks. What's going on with this? Okay, there we go. Well, we were having a power problem for a minute. We are back. I am back. I don't know if you're back yet, but if you are, please hit the like button. It really helps. We should have a great stream tonight. I'm really excited about it. This wasn't the original stream that I planned, but then I saw this talk and I kind of wanted to talk about it. The discussion that we're going to discuss tonight is a talk between Eric Weinstein and Eric Davis. Eric Weinstein should need no introduction on here. He's a mathematician and he has been put forward a theoretical physics theory, I guess, a theory of a theoretical physics, a theory of theoretical physics, I guess, called geometric unity. And I feel like there's a more concise way to say that I'm just missing right now. But, and he's a physics theorist, we'll just say, and he has put forward a theory called geometric unity and as a proposal for kind of a more fundamental theory than our current theories of physics and a way to unite them as well. It's highly relevant to the UFO subject, and if you follow this channel, then you know that while I cannot speak to all the details of geometric unity, I do think that what I have seen in it is aligned with the philosophical implications of sentient singularity theory, which is my metaphysics theory, which it's not a physics theory, but it's a philosophical theory of a metaphysical framework of cosmology. And it seems to be quite aligned with geometric unity. That doesn't mean it is aligned or compatible is what I will say. It doesn't, it's compatible with many people's theories, but I think geometric unity seems to be one of them. And geometric unity is also a theory that Eric believes is highly relevant to the UFO subject because of the apparent or alleged ways in which these craft are able to traverse space. And I think that that's probably correct, actually. I think geometric unity probably could be highly relevant to that. And he's having a talk with Eric Davis, Eric Davis was a scientist who's worked with the government on various projects and involved in the aerospace community, particularly. He has quite a history with the UFO subject. He is kind of involved in some of the larger leaks, the more prominent leaks, like the Wilson memo, if any of you are familiar with that. If not, I would look it up. It's basically notes of a meeting between people who were allegedly classifying, working on a classified project involving reverse engineering of recovered UFO craft, I guess you could say, and just working with other people in the government that were apparently kept out of it. But it's a whole subject. I've actually probably done a stream on it years ago, but it is worth looking into, and I'm not going to say everything that came out of the leaks out of that was true. What everybody was told is true. I don't know, but I do believe that the notes are real, at least about it. But and that what the meetings that are alleged to take place in that actually probably took place. But this is a very difficult subject to navigate, the UFO subject. And we're going to talk about that tonight because it's very relevant to sentient singularity theory. Not so much in terms of I'm going to try and explain how we, traverse space, but by sidestepping general relativity. That's not what I am going to try and do. Sentient Singularity Theory's most applicable and relevant application is always personal. And so we're going to talk about how to navigate the subject sanely, because it is one of those subjects that it's a mess. It's probably more of a mess than any other subject. That doesn't mean there's nothing to it. I actually think that there is, and I have done a whole stream on my personal views much more deeply on the subject, and even personal experiences, even video that I've taken of something flying over Los Angeles that other people took video of as well. That was not a normal craft, and you can watch the video. I might play it tonight too, but it's in a stream I did a couple years ago called like I think UFOs versus wasps, something like that. It was talking about convergent evolution, patterns of convergent evolution that between eusocial insects and potentially like NHIs, whatever they are, these beings that are allegedly involved in creating these craft, these UFOs. I guess I don't feel weird calling them a UFO, because every time I told my wife, she was with me when we filmed this like UFO once. It's the only time I've ever seen a UFO, but I'm like, we saw a UFO, and she's like, yeah, unidentified. And like she says every time I say it, I'm like, you saw it? She's like, yeah, unidentified. Yeah, but it was not normal. That's the point. But UFO, everybody assumes that means like a craft of non-human origin. That's what I mean by it, and not human as we know it, at least. And I did film one once above Los Angeles, and that same day, I found 3 other videos, I think, that were uploaded by other people who filmed the same thing in Los Angeles, in basically the same spot that I saw it, and so it was very abnormal. And so I do believe there's something going on. I'm not going to claim to have the answers, because I think anybody that does probably should watch the stream and figure out how to navigate the subject more sanely. I don't think anybody, any human alive, actually probably fully understands the subject, but that doesn't mean we can't think about it in a way that is productive and coherent. So that's what I want to focus on, and how sentient singularity theory's implications can be put to use when navigating a subject as complex as the UFO subject. This talk was on Jesse Michael's channel. The whole stream, to their whole conversation, it was, I think, a lot of it. It's like 2 conversations. It's like one with Eric Davis, Jesse Michaels, and Eric Weinstein, and then eventually it just becomes a separate. It seems like a separate conversation where it's just Eric and Weinstein and Jesse Michaels. Jesse Michaels' channel is fascinating. I really like it. Highly suggest that you subscribe if you haven't. He's very interested in the UFO subject, and I think he does a pretty good job of just. He's definitely puts out very quality content on it, and that's very thorough, and he does a lot of research. And it's definitely one of the better channels to look into if you're going to think, really dive into this subject. I would say Jesse Michaels' channel is a great one, and Richard Dolan is another one. Those are really the only 2 that I look at when it comes to this subject, because it's just it's a lot. We'll talk about it. Please hit the like button. Like I said, comment any questions that you have in the chat. We are also going to talk about the possibility of a conspiracy to mislead the physicists within academia over the course of decades to try and stifle potentially physics breakthroughs that for some reason or another someone would not want out there. And I think that this is actually another fascinating subject. I think that it's something that really needs to be thought about given the current state of physics. It's just how lost it's been. I think there's multiple reasons for that, but one of them might be a conspiracy. And I told you guys, I think a couple streams ago, that I watched this show called Prime Target. It's on Apple TV. It's about a physicist or mathematician who is working on a theory involving predicting prime numbers, and that has a lot of implications regarding cryptography. And the whole show is about the NSA its multi-decade conspiracy to control and stifle developments in certain mathematics that could have national security implications. And this is a very, very important subject, actually, much more important than I think anybody who is really well-accredited physicist today seems to understand at all, which is odd. But anyways, let's get to the first clip. Sending good vibes to everyone, everywhere, everyone. You know, saying everyone I'm going to try and be good about addressing the chat. Thank you. And hi to my wife. It was always my first comment. I appreciate it. But when you say everyone, that's going to be very relevant to the stream, because Eric talks about the possibility of multiple temporal dimensions, and that there might be multiple times. And we're going to try and even dissect a statement like that, because what is clear is that we don't yet have the language to describe that in a way that is intuitive and clear. And maybe we can make some progress on it tonight. I don't know. We'll try. But like I said, please hit the like button, and we will look at the first clip. Here we go. Just for context, maybe I'll show the UFO, actually, probably show my UFO video that I filmed in LA first, just to, I guess, open it up. But this is the first, I'll show this first clip of the stream, and then I'll show the UFO video, because it's relevant.
Oh yeah, my wife and I did in Tucson, Arizona, broad daylight, a boomerang. So
Have you ever seen a UFO?
oh yeah, my wife and I did in Tucson, Arizona, broad daylight, a boomerang-shaped craft below traffic pattern altitude. Looked kind of like halfway boomerang, halfway boot heel type shape, but it was close.
Have you ever seen a craft in a hangar?
No,
Have
I
you ever,
wish. I wanted to.
have you ever seen any one-of-one material? So idiosyncratic, never seen before material.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and the arts parts don't qualify.
Okay.
We don't
Okay.
know what the problem.
Okay, so a little bit about my background. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. Actually, I grew up there. I love it. I love that place. If you've never been, it's beautiful. Not necessarily every part of the city, but the surrounding mountains it is a beautiful place. Saguaro National Park, highly recommend. But what's interesting about Tucson is that Tucson is the home of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and it's also the home of the Boneyard. And the Boneyard is where the Air Force stores all of its declassified planes, or its non-classified planes. And so there are hundreds and hundreds of basically every type of plane that the Air Force uses that you can think of. Hundreds of C-130s, hundreds of F-16s, and everything that you can think of. Some of them are used for spare parts. Some of them are kept in a state of storage that allows for them to be refurbished and used again very quickly if we ever have a massive conflict. They need to double the size of the Air Force quickly. they go to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base and they go to the boneyard, and they basically that's where they store all the planes. The reason why is because Tucson, with the exception of monsoon season in the summer, is extremely hot and dry, and so there's not a lot of corrosion that occurs. So you can kind of leave something outside for decades and it's going to be okay as long as it's not going to be destroyed by the sun. You can't leave plastic outside for very long, it will just fall apart. But if you leave metal outside, it'll be fine. And so that's why this is in Tucson, and Davis-Monthan Air Force Base is a pretty big base. So I'm also an aerospace kind of nerd. I love fighter jets and military aircraft, and I know a lot of the history about it. And I can probably identify every plane that the Air Force uses today. And yeah, I definitely can. At least that is not classified. And I've seen basically all of it because I grew up at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And I've never seen a UFO in Tucson, Arizona. But that is where, interestingly, where Eric Davis claims that him and his wife saw a UFO. But I moved to California like 11 years ago. I don't live there anymore. Recently moved. But when I was living in LA, for those of you that don't know the story, my wife and I went and took our wedding photos, and then we were driving back. We took them in Pasadena underneath this like famous bridge, and then we were driving back, and the sun was just starting to set, and I looked out over Los Angeles, and I'm driving down this road, this highway that's called 290. Anybody that's from LA knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm heading towards Burbank because that's where I lived. So I was going from Pasadena west towards Burbank, and you're on this highway that's north of Los Angeles, and you can look to your left and just see all of LA, all of it, downtown LA, and beyond. And above downtown LA, I saw a super bright, non blinking ball of light. It was unlike anything I had ever seen personally before. And LA has helicopters flying over it all the time. It has blimps flying over it all the time. It has planes flying over it all the time. You see all kinds of craft. And this was different than anything I had ever seen there or anywhere else. The only thing that it looked like was like videos of alleged UFOs in some more famous cases that have been posted to online. The DC UFOs that were in like the 50s. There were UFOs of some type hovering over the Capitol building in like the 50s or 60s. And there were tons of photos taken of it, and it was all over the newspaper, and people don't talk about it very much anymore, but it was kind of a crazy thing. And then you can look it up. You can see pictures of it. Then I've seen very old footage of that Bob Lazar shot, allegedly above Papoose Lake, just south of Area 51, which is at Groom Lake. And he supposedly worked there. We're going to talk about it because they talk about it. I think that's the most interesting leak in this whole subject is Bob Lazar. And he allegedly worked there and saw a craft in a hangar and was supposedly part of a team to try and reverse engineer the technology that was involved with them being able to hover and fly. And it's a long story. You should definitely look into it. Watch Joe Rogan's interview of him. But he went and revealed to his wife and his friend that he was working on this stuff, and they went one night because he knew that when they were doing test flights of it, and they filmed it. And there is footage out there. I haven't seen it in a while. It's hard to find, but it looks like what I saw above downtown LA. That's what I'll say. What's interesting is that day I searched on YouTube about a week later, after a few days, whatever, that date, and not lots, but a few other people had posted videos of exactly the craft that I saw. And I'm now going to show the video of it and kind of explain it, just because I think it's important. that we prioritize firsthand information always whenever we're trying to make sense of anything. And this is my firsthand information that I have on this subject. It's not hearsay. It is something that I saw, and it is contextualized within my previous experience. And we always want to prioritize that when navigating any subject. And that's part of the implications of Sentient Singularity Theory. And so we're going to do that. Here we go. It is on my YouTube channel, but this is also it. Okay. The footage, let me tell you first, if you've ever seen a full moon, and it's like a super moon, and you're like, that's the most amazing moon I've ever seen, you tried to take a video on your cell phone of it and to show everyone, then you looked at the video and it's not even worth sending to people because of just optics. Just know that is happening in this situation, but we're going to break down the footage because it's actually fascinating. And there's some things I think to be learned from it. But at first it's you're going to be like, it's light in the sky. But if you look more closely, we'll show why it's weird. This is me and my wife driving down the highway filming. So there is a UFO right there. There was another one. It's super bright. There is a plane next to it. There's been planes flying around it. It's not a planet. I checked Skyview. It's hovering in place. That's it. I am convinced it's a UFO. There was another one too, and it disappeared. It's literally hovering. So this is downtown Glendale. If anybody wants more context of where we are, this is Glendale. It's a suburb area of LA, and it's a UFO. We were leaving Pasadena and basically going by Eagle Rock, and you can see it's right there. My wife is driving, and I am in the passenger seat. It's super bright. And it's right there. There is a plane next to it. But now it's gone. There's been planes flying around it. It's not a planet. I checked Skyview. It's hovering in place. By the way, we're driving straight on this. This is a straight highway. It's not curving at any point where we are right now. And that is where it is in relationship to this, the frame of the window of my wife's car. Right there. There was another one. It's super bright. And then it disappears. Checked Skyview. It's hovering in place. And I lost it for a minute. And then I realized it's way over there. Now it's literally completely on the other side of Glendale, almost above Griffith Park, which is another area of LA. It went from planes flying around it. Literally right above Eagle Rock, basically. It's super bright. To just gone, and then there. And you don't see it move. It just is gone and then there. I am convinced it's a UFO. There was another one too, and it disappeared. I don't actually know if it was another one anymore. I'll explain that in a minute. But when I first saw this, the light, it was above downtown Los Angeles. Okay, literally a few seconds before I started filming, like above the tall Bank One building or whatever it's called in the center of downtown LA. It was like there. Okay, and then it was above Eagle Rock, and it was so instant. It wasn't even fast. It was instantaneous. This whole time, every time I'm looking at the light, it looks stationary in the sky, but it moves from downtown LA to above Eagle Rock to literally above basically Griffith Park. And at no point do I see it move. But that is not a trick of the camera angles, okay? That is or of us moving in the car. That is very odd. Nothing moves that fast. but also appears to be completely stationary the whole time. It's not a helicopter in the sky. It's not a drone. It's not a plane. And there are planes that fly under it in this video, which you'll see right in a minute. It's literally hovering. I watch. But there was another one above downtown LA. We were driving by, and I don't think it was another one anymore. I think it was the same one, and it just went from one place to the next, because at no point did I see both of them at the same time. I just was amazed that it could. I just didn't understand in the moment that it could be above downtown LA and then above Eagle Rock. I thought it was two, because that's what made sense in my head. But now watching it, after watching the video and seeing that it went from above Eagle Rock, disappeared, and then instantaneously was above Griffith Park, I think it's the same craft. The same, and it was weird because it was like a light was shining from below it and above it, like it was like shooting up into a V. I was just explaining that this light just looked weird, and I didn't know what to say at the time. But the light. But there it is, right there. I don't know. But there is a plane below it. Look, you can see one, right? That's a plane. That's a plane right there. It's moving. That is not. And it's blinking, and you can see red lights on it. There's nothing here that is other than just a giant, very bright orb of like yellowish light. It's still there, just hovering. And I thought it was at the top of the mountain, but that's the top of the mountain. There's no mountain over there. That's fascinating. So that was filmed, and then I searched. That was August 27th, 2021. That's when I filmed that. So I searched UFOs August 27th, 2021 into YouTube. And somebody, remember I said that it was above downtown LA? We had just taken our photos as the sun was going down. So we took our photos because that's called golden hour. My wife and I both were wedding photographers for years. And a friend of ours who's also a wedding photographer took our kind of photos of us, with my wife in our wedding dress and me in my suit. And which actually wasn't the suit that I got married in. It was the suit I was supposed to get married in, but it arrived the day after my wedding. And so we wanted to get some photos of it. What are the odds? But our friend offered to take some pictures for us. So she took these photos under this bridge in Pasadena during golden hour, which is sunset. And then we went through the drive-thru and got Chick-fil-A, I think, in Pasadena, and then drove home afterwards. So for context, that means that the sun had just set and it was like setting. This next video was filmed when the sun was still up. I don't know what time, but it could have been just a few minutes before I saw the light above downtown LA, because the sun, like I said, had literally just set. But somebody else filmed this on the exact same day. It is the same craft. It is. Or at least it is the same type of craft. And it's the same day, and it's exactly where I first saw the light. You can see. And again, they film a plane fly under it in this video too, in the daylight. And so you can tell it's not a plane. Here.
Good girl.
Where'd it go? Okay. So this is a terrible picture. Good girl.
Good girl. Oh, good girl. Come here. Come here.
They're clearly talking to their dog. And I'll post a link to their actual channel below after the stream is over. But this is a plane flying underneath this craft.
Good girl. Oh, good
Like,
girl. Oh, come here.
very clearly not the same thing.
Good girl. Oh, good girl. Yeah, that's
So that plane just flew right by. It's a terrible picture, but we've been following this thing for like 5 minutes probably. and it started way to the north of us. The thing is, if it was a balloon, it seems like it would go in one direction. But it started north, came south, then headed east a ways, and now it's heading west. Downtown is right over there.
Exactly like I said. That's same day, and I don't know what time, but earlier than when I shot my video, but it is the same thing. It's not a balloon because it was the brightest thing I've ever seen in the sky at night other than the moon. Ever. There's nothing that has even come close to it. I know the video is kind of underwhelming, but so is a video of a super moon that you take on your phone. And it's not underwhelming in person. It was the brightest thing I've ever seen in the sky besides the moon. And I checked, it was not a planet, it's not Venus, it's not Jupiter, and obviously it was like moving, changing positions. And I know the planets as well when I see them at night because I'm just weird. I have like the Sky View app on my phone that shows you all the constellations and the planets and orbits and dying satellites. Yeah, I recommend it. It's actually interesting.
Oh, that is not a helicopter.
At first we thought maybe it was a helicopter and we were catching a reflection off the windshield. Then we thought it was a balloon, but if it's a balloon, it feels like it would move in one direction. I don't know. We always watch these shows on TV and wonder what it would be like if we ever saw something. This is the first time when we honestly have a question about what the heck it could be. We're looking at it with binoculars and it sort of undulates around like it could be a balloon, except that it moves in weird directions.
It's not a balloon because it has lights on.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. We've been watching it for about 5 minutes.
Sounds like a very sane person who considered the possibilities and sees that this is something weird. And same exact day, same exact place, same exact thing basically that I saw just right. This is before the sun went down, and mine was filmed right after, like 5 minutes after the sun dipped, maybe even less. And when I first saw it, like I said, it was above downtown LA, and then quicker than that, above Eagle Rock, to the point where I thought it was two. I thought one just like turned off the lights and one turned on the light. You know, one that was closer turned on a light. And I don't think that that's what happened. And when I was seeing this craft, I didn't realize that it was going from there down to above downtown LA to above Eagle Rock to above Glendale and then, you know, above Griffith Park, basically. And then I had to turn off and we hit our exit to go home. It didn't even make sense in my head what I was seeing. I just kept losing it. I was like, it was right there. Where is it? And then I had to like look around. You can see it in the video that I took where I'm like looking for it. And then I find it again. It's in a different spot from before. And at no point do you actually see it go like this. It just is here and then it's here. Not fast, instantly. That's very odd, actually. So the more you dissect the video, the more interesting that it gets. And there was even actually another video that was posted the same exact day and labeled as the same exact day from LA. And this is also during the day. This is above the water. And this is a very clear-ish video of some type of floating metallic sphere. Earlier in the day, but it is time-stamped as the same day. And I don't know what beach this is, but it's labeled as being some beach in LA on the coast and on that date. So here.
Я тебе говорю, вот видишь. Посмотреть, научиться.
There is no point of reference like the Bank One building or something that lets you know exactly where this is, but it was labeled as LA. So, and it says August 27th, 2021. Exactly the date that me and that other guy filmed it.
Ну где же птица? Чего нет? Сразу идет крыльями, где ты видишь крылья машет?
I don't know what he's saying. If you do, put it in the comments. But look at that. Like, what is that? That's not a balloon. I don't know. That's not a balloon. It's something odd. I think that we could agree. And then that would be a weird thing to see, you know, like, right? And imagine that thing glowing. That's probably what it looked like that we saw. It's just, and then this is the video of that we just saw. This person had posted both of them. Odd. 3 accounts. 2 of them are not mine. 1 of them is mine, so I know it's true. I can trust it because I saw it with my own eyes, and I know my own personal experience with aircraft, and it's a lot. I've never seen a plane in the sky that's at least I'm into fight. I like fighter jets, so like that's what I like. But there aren't any. I've never seen a plane that I wasn't really able to identify. That's a military plane, at least. And if it's not a military plane, then it's just, you know, it's either some small prop plane that's some private plane, or most likely, or it's one of a number of either Boeing or Airbus, you know, like jets that people fly on. So those are easy to, I've always at least been able to see that it's one of those. I'm not somebody that can claim to know a 737 from its Airbus equivalent from the ground, but I don't need to either, not for the sake of this. And so I definitely believe that that's like the main reason why I believe that why I should trust that there's something happening. I'm not going to say there aren't other things I believe. There are, but those are that's secondhand information. This is my firsthand information. And it's corroborated by other people's apparent firsthand information that was taken the same day. And the fact that it was weird enough that 3 people took videos of it, put it online, and date stamped it, and it was all allegedly in LA. Odd. When I was a kid, there was a very famous thing called the Phoenix Lights, and I lived in Tucson. Phoenix is about an hour and a half away, and I remember people talking about it nonstop. I don't remember the exact date that it happened, but I do remember people talking about it when I was a kid and like recalling it. I never saw it. I wasn't in Phoenix, and I wasn't looking outside when it happened, even if it was visible from Tucson. So this was the first time that that video that I took is the first and really like only time I really know that I saw something weird. I will say a few weeks later, I did see something very similar above what looked like downtown Burbank when I was in Glendale again, basically the same spot. And then there's the Burbank Police Department has a helicopter that it's their helicopter that they use. It's called the NOTAR helicopter. I do know it. I know aviation enough to know that, which is kind of a weird thing. It's different than what the LAPD uses. It's a helicopter that has no tail rotor and it's much smaller. It just kind of has a jet basically at the end of it. It's very easily identifiable. It's the only Burbank PD uses it, and that's where I lived. I've never seen another one in LA other than theirs. And I saw it, and the sun had just gone down, and I saw it basically like hovering near this light and trying to shine a light on it. It was like they saw it and went to go investigate it, and then immediately like the light disappeared and it was gone. And you could see that they were like looking around, and then that was it. But it was so quick. I went to grab my phone. I was like, again, like, yes. And then by the time I got it here, within like a second, it had disappeared. And so I don't, it was not. I don't know exactly if they saw what that was or not, but it did look the same, and it was just a couple weeks later, I think, and but I missed it on video. And I only saw it for a few seconds, and then by the time I got my phone out, it was gone. So that's not. It doesn't really like tell us anything unless it is the same craft and it just vanished again, like we kind of saw, which isn't new information if it is the same craft, because we can see it doing it in the video that I took. So that's it though. I've never seen any other flying saucers before, before or after. And so there's something, I am convinced there's something there. And there, now we have to look at more secondhand information. We have to start talking about like the implications of this, because this subject behaves on a social geopolitical level very differently than any other classified subject in the world. Because remember, as I said, I've always been very interested in military aviation. I know a lot of the history involving stealth technology that is at least declassified, and I've read up on the history of nuclear technology when it was being developed and by separate countries, and that level of classification is nothing compared to, and does not line up with this. It's very different. This subject does not act like what you would expect given like a technology race between countries. It seems to be classified on a level above nations. It's the only way that it kind of makes sense that there is such a globally chaotic narrative on the subject. That's not true of any other subject that has been highly classified ever. Even before it was declassified, there was a lot of things that people who were paying attention knew about the government creating stealth planes, and I'm sure that Russia knew that we were doing it, and like this, it's just very different. As soon as it gets revealed, other countries seem to start using it. Now China has a whole fleet of stealth fighter jets, and Russia has some stealthier jets, and there are not countless. There's a few countries in the world, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so countries in the world that have nuclear weapons, allegedly. That has never happened with this. So it's odd. I don't think that this is just classified tech that we have and no one else does. We use our classified tech that we have and nobody else does, and eventually it gets revealed because you drop a nuclear bomb on Japan, or you bomb Iraq with F-117 stealth fighter jets. So these things get out because you use them. There's no evidence of our military using technology that could like jump you from place to place, or anti-gravity tech, or any like instances of warfare, at least that are confirmed. None. And this has been a subject that has been going on long enough to where if this was a normal development, physics development, that would be the case. And that's what nuclear technology was. It was a revelation in physics that people saw the application for. And same thing with the development of stealth aircraft. Oddly, and that was a fascinating story. There was a Soviet mathematician who had written a paper on how radio waves, I think, scatter based on like geometric, when they hit different geometric shapes. I forgot the name of it, but of the paper. And he published the paper, and the Soviet Union thought it was harmless. And so they didn't classify it. They had it be publicly listed. They thought it had no application. And then Ben Rich and some other people at Lockheed Martin saw potential in this paper for creating an aircraft that can deflect radar away from receivers. And so basically that's how we got stealth planes. Was the Soviet Union published a paper, didn't classify it because they thought it was completely useless and harmless, and somebody realized that there was a technological application, and it was their adversary actually, and they used it to build aircraft now that are so far ahead of the Soviet Union that it's like in no contest. Basically, it's like a make or break technology, or at least it was, 20, 30 years ago. So that's the reality of physics and mathematics sometimes, and is that it's applicable. Even philosophical theories like sentient singularity theory are applicable. Any true theories that are rigorous enough and specific enough to even be called a theory will be applicable. There was a big talk that was given on it. Was a TED talk, and I forgot the name of the physicist that gave it, but I'll have to look it up and find it. But I watched it years ago, and he's probably a famous enough physicist that Eric Weinstein would know who he is, but he's not a famous enough physicist to have ever been on the Discovery Channel. And so, but he gave it TED talk, and he was like, "This is my proposal for a theory of everything, a theory to unite quantum mechanics and general relativity, basically the equivalent of Eric Weinstein's theory." And he gives this whole talk, his TED talk, and then at the end he goes, "So what? What now? What do we do with this?" And he's like, "Nothing. It's complete. There's no application for this whatsoever." And he thought that was kind of like a smart, unique thing to say. But that's basically what the entire physics community has been assuming for decades. Eric's geometric unity is different than those, even alone in the fact that he thinks that it has specific and impactful implications and applications. That is the reality of true theories. And anybody that thinks that they have a theory that is totally useless, like, I don't think they understand even what they're working on. And it's probably not correct. That's my thoughts on it. But let's go to the chat. Sasquatch can move that fast. Sasquatch moves so fast that I've never seen one. That's what I'll say. Firecracker, maybe. Not a firecracker at all. Definitely not a firecracker. And instant transmission, yes. It was instant. Not fast. So instantaneous that it broke my mind. I couldn't process in the moment what was happening. I just kept thinking that I lost it, because I didn't see it ever moving in any direction to where, like, even if I went behind a tree or something, I could pick it up because I'd know where it was headed. It never seemed to move. It seemed stationary in the sky at every moment that I looked at it. And in the video, you don't see it moving. We're moving, but it doesn't seem to be. But it also, in the video, very clearly was over there above Eagle Rock and is now past Glendale and hovering above basically Griffith Park. And before that, I saw it hovering above downtown LA a second before I started the video. To the point where I thought it was two different craft. And that's why I say there was another one in the video, is because I thought it was two. And I don't think it was two anymore. But I had to rewatch the video afterwards to see that it seemed to go from here to miles and miles and miles away. It's not a small distance. I don't know how many miles it is. but we could actually find out. Maps. Eagle Rock, Los Angeles. Directions. How do I get directions? Let's see. To Griffith Park. Okay. It is about 7 miles, 6 miles. Yeah, 6 miles. So from a bird's eye view, this is just where, this is what happened. So we were, where is this right here is where we took our photos. I think the bridge is like right here. And then we went and we got food over here, and then we got back on the highway and we're driving here. And right about here is where we saw the UFO at first. And I saw it first above downtown Los Angeles, which is over here. I think it was like above the Bank One building, basically. And then it was instantly over here above Eagle Rock. And then it was instantly right after that, as we're driving down this road right here, the 134, which is also the 210. It turns into the 134. And we're driving towards Burbank, which is over here. This is where I lived. And we're driving, and I saw it way out of frame south. Then it was right here. And then it instantly was over here, just north of these mountains that are where Griffith Park is. And so it went from way south. Oh, not there. Basically like here to here instantly. And then from here to here instantly. Not seconds, instantly. That's wild. That's wild. There is no plane on Earth that can do that. And there are probably some very fast planes that they haven't even told us about. And that is not what this was. It looked stationary the whole time. That's what's so weird. It never went like this. It only went here, and then it was here, and then it was here. I don't even want to go like this because that's not what it did. It was here, and then it was there. It wasn't here and then moved super fast. It was just from here to there. And that's odd. But we're going to talk about what the physics implications are of this. If what I saw is true, which I have to assume it is because it's my firsthand experience, and if you deny your firsthand experience, then you're going to lose your mind. That's the reality of it. A lot of people do that today, actually. They prioritize secondhand information above firsthand information. That's how you lose it, actually. You should not navigate your world based on accreditations. You navigate your world based on prioritizing firsthand information above secondhand information and checking it against each other, like we just did. We took my video. We looked online. We found other people's videos of the same exact thing, apparently in the same exact place on the same exact day. Multiple other people. So you want your firsthand information to match with secondhand sources. That makes them more trustworthy. It doesn't make your firsthand experience more trustworthy. It makes the secondhand information more trustworthy when it lines up with your firsthand experience. That's what you have to do. and you build from there. So let's go to the next clip of their talk. Kind of jump around in the clips, but again, we're going to talk about my firsthand experience and how it's on certain subjects and how it's relevant to something that Eric says in this next clip.
It's not as a dig, or it's like I just can't figure this out. So we toss off these humanoid aliens, like aliens that are tetrapods, literally tetrapod body plans. We have arachnids, we have insects, we have cephalopods, we have all sorts of intelligent life that doesn't follow a tetrapod body plan.
Right.
The odd of a humanoid evolving through convergent evolution somewhere else of a humanoid is vanishingly small.
But it's not zero.
Yeah, but it's preposterous.
But Occam's razor wouldn't be that these beings would be from elsewhere. They would be that they'd be derivative of humans.
Or look, you
That's a
can tell me
possibility.
some other story, like these things aren't even really the beings, that the real beings have constructed these things to interact with us, not to make us uncomfortable. Okay, I understand.
Do you believe that?
That's possible.
All right, but any biologist hearing this story is just going to have the same reaction, like tetrapods. This sounds like it came out of a Buck Rogers thing where you had to. It was too hard to hire an actor to behave as if they had a completely different body plan. So all aliens from the golden age of cinema or silent movies, whatever, were going to be tetrapods if they were playing an alien. So that, first of all, really bugs me, is that I don't want to hear about that with no mention of it is stunning that there are two eyes, a mouth, a head, and it walks the same way we do. I mean, even if you look at like a camel's legs, where we have a knee, it has an ankle, or something like that.
Mhm.
So that's the first part. That's just the biological.
This is something that I have a lot of firsthand experience with. I was a zoology major to start, and I've worked with some of the most famous zoologists in the world. My first beer at a restaurant ever was with Mark O'Shea, who's like, he had a show on Animal Planet, and after a day of studying rattlesnakes in Arizona. This is, I actually disagree with Eric on this. Even though it is my personal belief that these are not beings from another planet. That is what I think. I don't have the answers, and I don't know for sure, and it doesn't really matter. But it is my belief that they are not from another planet. But even if they are, and also even if they're not, that's not the point here. The odds that a species that develops technology would be very similar to us morphologically is probably 100%, actually. There are so many species. He's looking at this from the wrong perspective. There are so many different species, and there's much more limited morphological set, general set among animals than it seems to be stating, but still, like, when there's an octopus, it's like, why do octopuses and spiders both have 8 legs? It's like, why 8? It's not that's not a coincidence. There's probably convergent constraints that cause that convergent evolution, even with that. But there are countless there are lots of different odd body shapes among animals on Earth. Everything from jellyfish, and look at just the range of body of morphology in jellyfish. It's enormous. It's probably bigger than any other animal group that I can think of. There are jellyfish that look like just a ball and of like clear jelly, and there are jellyfish that are like bright pink and are 50 feet long almost, and just have, maybe not 50 feet, but like 2 double-digit length tentacles, and are probably weigh over 100 pounds, like, that are enormous. They don't look related at all. But and then there's octopus, which my daughter is super into octopus right now. I got her a little stuffed animal octopus, and she's like all about it. Every night when I read her this book, there's like a crab in the book. It's called Good Night Beach. She calls it Night Night Beach. And there's a picture of like the beach, and these kids are all on the beach, and there's like a crab. And I told her that octopus eat crabs, and she takes the little like stuffed animal octopus, and she holds it up to the book. She goes, "Eat the crab." She's 2. For anybody that doesn't know, it's very cute. But she's very into octopus right now, and we watched like videos about them on YouTube and stuff. She's all about it. And but octopus are a fascinating morphology because they seem to be able to manipulate things very they can open jars and stuff like that in ways that really only humans and them can do. And dolphins are probably, from an IQ perspective, probably up there with us, actually. They don't have technology, neither do octopus. There are no creatures on Earth other than humans that we know of that have I would call abstract technology. The first piece of abstract technology ever created is a knife. It's not a hammer, because a rock is just a hammer. Other animals use tools. People say tool use separates humans from animals. That's not true. All animals use tools. Some animals find tools and use them, like they'll find a crack in the ground and use it, or a hole in a tree and use it. Other animals make tools, actually. Certain birds will make tools out of sticks. Anytime you pick up a tool, even, you are making it, essentially. Like if you pick up a stick or you choose a stick off the ground because it's small enough to fit into a tree and get out a grub, and you're a primate, you are not just using a tool, you're making it, essentially, because that's different than just finding a hole that already exists. Even making a hole in the ground, digging your own hole in the ground, like a tarantula does, or a scorpion, or a mouse, that is tool building. And what separates humans is that humans make tools to make tools. That's what separates humans. It's not that they use tools, and it's not that they make tools. Every animal in the world uses tools. Many animals make tools. Humans are the only ones that make tools to make tools. And the same thing goes with our language. Every species of animal has a form of communication, and some of them have more complex verbal communication, like birds. But they have certain calls for certain circumstances that already exist. This call means danger. This call means mating. This call means food, whatever. Humans are the only ones that have a communicative toolbox that allows them to or to communicate things that aren't going on in the immediate circumstance. Okay, that's the difference between humans and all other species, and that comes from a multitude of simultaneous traits, simultaneously evolved traits that we have, that all must be present. We must be terrestrial so that we can live on land. If you live in the water, you're not making fire, you're not going to transform materials, you're not going to have complex technology. You need to walk upright enough in some way to be able to move while also moving things in the space. You need to move yourself in the space. That means you need to have feet that are separate from your hands. Okay? And that you can use those hands when you're not using them, even when you are also using your feet. And you need probably the ability to speak, to vocalize complex sounds. My daughter is exploding in language right now. She said to me today, she's never rode a school bus, but she likes school buses. And so I told her that, Dada rode a yellow bus. She's like, sees a school bus. She goes, yellow bus. I was like, yeah, Dada rode a yellow bus when Dada was a little kid. And the only bus she's ever ridden is at the airport. We ride this green bus, like from the parking lot where you park your car to the actual terminal, and then we get on an airplane. And so today she said to me, when she saw a school bus drive by, she said, a yellow bus. Dada rode a yellow bus, and Juliana rode a green bus to the airport to get on airplane. And I was like, whoa, that is the most complex sentence you have ever said in your life. It's keeping her awake at night because she is imagining things that she could not possibly imagine before without a complex language, because you need something to reference in order to bring up a vision in your mind about something that isn't going on in isn't triggered by your immediate circumstances. And so that's also necessary to create complex technology. It's the same mechanism that's going on. The ability to do things beyond what are your necessities with your hands while you're also walking. It's the ability to communicate complex sounds that with a range enough to be able to say a bunch of different sounds for a bunch of different concepts. And also you need, like I said, hands to create the technology. You need to live on land. You need to be able to walk around while you're using your hands. Octopus cannot do that. Octopus, their hands and their feet are the same. They might have 8 of them, but their hands and their feet are the same. Even though I've seen some of them walking with 2 legs and, like looks like a little human running around, but they don't do anything else with their hands that's complex while they do that. And same thing goes with even chimps. Chimps walk around mostly on all fours, even though their hands are basically the same as ours. Their feet are very similar. They don't stand upright, and that doesn't free up their hands. All of these things are necessary. And if all of these things are necessary, you probably actually, the odds that some other species would look like us, that was all, if it was also technologically had complex technology, is almost 100%. And just to show how crazy convergent evolution can be, here's a very interesting example. It's my favorite example of convergent evolution. There is a snake called an emerald tree boa. My I know about most animals, but that you could think of at least, but I am an expert, like a world. I can hang with the world-class experts of herpetology, which is like reptiles specifically. I haven't made discoveries or anything like that, but I work with the people who are making the discoveries and go with them to their study sites and stuff. Just tag along and learn. But this snake right here is called an emerald tree boa. And this snake is called a green tree python. Green tree python, emerald tree boa. These are not just different species. They are not even in the same, just different genus. They are totally different. This snake lays eggs. This snake gives birth to live young. This snake is in Indonesia. This snake is in South America. Not only do they look similar, because yeah, it's a green snake. It with white lines on it. It lives in the trees. No, not just that. They are the only snakes that sit like this commonly. This is like how they sit always, constantly. This very unique perching behavior. They're the only ones that do it, really, like commonly. And not only that, they both, when they have babies, their babies are either red or yellow. And then they turn green, of both species. Why? They act the same. They look the same. They're not related. They evolved on complete opposite sides of the world, and they evolved completely independently. They are not related at all. The species that they are much more closely related to look nothing like them in both cases, and act nothing like them. And also don't go through what's called an ontogenetic color change, which is when a baby of a species is born a different color from an adult, and then as it goes through puberty, it changes color. They are both do that. Why do they do that? I don't know exactly, but there is a reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. Why is it so specific that it's both of them can either be red or yellow, and then they turn green because they live in the trees. But why are they both born either red or yellow and then change? There are countless snakes in the world that are born green and stay green and die green. There's only really a few that go through this change, and they all act almost identical. And in this particular case, they do act identically and they look almost identical. Why? There are so many other instances of convergent evolution that I can show, but this one is just so obvious, so I use it as the example all the time. But there are countless instances of examples of convergent evolution that I can show. The odds that any species that develops complex technology would look like us is almost 100%. It is not very small. It is probably, it's not even almost 100%. It's probably 100%. As we like to say on here, it's probably 100%, which is a funny statement if you think about it. That it's actually like a joke, but it gets the point across. Because it's probably 100%. It's like the logic of that is kind of self-contradictory if you think about it. I don't know. I think it's funny, but it's also true in this case. I don't even think that these beings are from another planet. I don't know what they are, but I think it's more likely that humans split into two like tech trees basically at a certain point way in the past. And I don't know if that's true. I'm not saying it is. But I think that it's more likely than them being from alphas, some planet Kepler B or whatever, Zeta Reticuli. I don't think that's true, but could be. But if there are beings out there on other planets that develop complex technology, like when I say complex technology, I mean knives, which are the first tool that you had to build to make, and it's used to make other tools. You don't find knives, you make them. Even if it's out of a smashed rock, piece of volcanic rock like obsidian or something, you make a knife. There's no instances in which knives are just found lying around. Sticks are found lying around. Rocks are found lying around. That means hammers and all kinds of stick tools are just found. Nowhere are knives just found. As soon as an obsidian rock breaks, like weather is going to make it not sharp very quickly. So to have an actual useful knife, you have to make one, even if it's out of obsidian. That's why this is here always, is because it's a representation of humans' first piece of technology. And fire you could argue is maybe the only other contender, but this is the first tool to make tools, and to make this, you probably have to look like this, pretty similar, at least. Please hit the like button if you're finding this interesting. Let me go to the chat. When I was a LA kid in LA and Orange County, was constantly subjected to sonic booms. Yeah. There was like a famous instance of there are seismometers, seismograph. I don't know which one is the correct one. I'm not going to look it up. One of those two. There are sensors that monitor seismic activity all around down Southern California, because it's just a place. It's a fault zone, so there's a lot of earthquakes all over. And I experienced an earthquake until I lived in LA, and I've experienced a couple scary earthquakes while I was living there. Only two that scared me. Like legitimately, I was worried about the house that I was living in coming down. But there are like earthquakes where it kind of feels like you're on a boat and you're just like, do I have vertigo or like what's going on? And you don't even realize it's an earthquake until all of a sudden your phone goes off, and it's like you get this. Everybody in Southern California gets this automatic like update anytime there's some type of earthquake anywhere, and these seismographs are used to triangulate exactly where the epicenter is and how strong it was, and everybody gets it all at once. And but they have those seismic seismometers, seismograph. I don't know what it is, which one it is. I probably sound ridiculous if you actually know the answer, but it was like every Thursday between like 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. For a couple years, I think in like the early 90s, they would have these sonic booms that they would detect that would leave Area 51, basically fly across downtown, across California out to the Pacific Ocean, turn around and come back. And they could track where it was coming from and where it was going and how fast it was going based on it tripping these seismographs or seismometers, whichever one it is. And it was, I think they had it clocked at like over Mach 4 or something. And obviously that something like that is going to come from Area 51. But supposedly they're working on the SR-72, which is like the successor to the SR-71, apparently, at Lockheed Martin. It's unmanned, and it's supposed to go like Mach 5, Mach 6, something like that. But they probably had some really fast planes that they were testing that were secret even back in the 90s. And they measured them on those seismographs. It's fascinating, like area LA. It's Burbank is odd because where I lived in LA specifically is where Lockheed Martin was headquartered. And so while they tested all these planes at Area 51, like the SR-71, which was the fastest plane, declassified fastest plane, manned plane, and the stealth fighters, the F-117 stealth fighters, and countless other planes that they don't reveal to us. There is one cool one that's looks like a UFO. We'll just look at it. This is the what was it called? It was called the Phantom Works. Boeing. Oh man. Bird of prey. So this plane, they did declassify. It looks like a straight up, like, I think they called it the bird of prey because it looks like people thought it looked like the bad guy's spaceship in Star Trek. I didn't watch that much Star Trek, but I think that's the origin story. But it's now at the biggest aerospace museum, I think, in Ohio. But they used to test this thing at Area 51 apparently, and it looks super advanced, but it's actually like cheap hodgepodge of like spare parts, and this is it at the museum right now. You can go see it. It's pretty cool that they actually like have it on display. But if this is what they show us, like what do they have that they don't show us? Probably some pretty cool stuff. But the question is, do they have stuff that can go from one spot to another instantly? This was not fast, by the way. This was like, could go like 400 miles an hour. It's not, it just was stealth. It was testing stealth technology. That's the question. And if they do, I don't think we made it. That's what I'll say. If we have stuff that, like what Bob Lazar is describing at, bases around Area 51 or anywhere even more secret, I don't think that we made that. It doesn't make sense with how the story of the classified tech, it would have been declassified at this point. It's been long enough. Like other countries would have developed it. And even if it's not as good, it would be known technology, and it's just not. And that just implies that there is level, if it does exist, there is a level of secrecy or of classification. There's a classification scheme going on that is probably way above governments, and I think implies that it's not actually being managed by people, by humans as we know. It's probably being managed by the beings that have these craft, which implies they want to keep it secret and don't want us to know about it. And which makes sense. I mean, and that implies some other things that why wouldn't they want us to know about it? But it's also odd because it has other implications about, like, it implies that these aren't from another planet, because if they were from another planet, then implies that, like, beings from another planet probably could have eventually made that technology as well. And if a bunch of beings can make it, then why are we being suppressed? It's just, it kind of like doesn't, it's the fact that if these exist and they can do that, anti-gravity, or can jump from one spot to another instantly, there are when you think through the implications of it, it actually is kind of suggests that they're not from another planet, and it implies that, like, they're the only, it's like us and them probably, like, we're the next highest most technological, like, beings, and they're the first, and that's in the entire, maybe even like the entire universe, that sounds crazy, but I don't think it's nearly as wild of a statement as it seems. Even Sarah Walker, who's she's basically a physicist now, but she has, she was, like, I think studying astrobiology, which is like, what even is that? That's not a field of study. There is no biological life that we know of outside of Earth, so you can't study it. But she's definitely has thought about the implications. She works on assembly theory with Lee Cronin and thinks that the universe is basically, like, converging in its assembly process, and that it makes sense that it's not, that there's, like, Star Trek situation where all these civilizations are becoming independently technologically advanced. And I agree with her. I think that makes sense. There's lots of reasons why people will say it's such a vast universe. Yeah, and there's zero evidence of any beings out there. If there's any evidence of any technologically advanced beings operating craft beyond us, human capability as we know it, the only evidence for them is here, not out there, actually. And there's not even evidence that we've ever found, really, that's definitive of cellular life beyond Earth. So when people say that just doesn't make sense, it's like, you have to trust firsthand information. You have zero evidence for any at least life on a cellular level, anywhere but Earth. Why would, and also it seems like all cellular life on Earth is related. And Sentient Singularity Theory has a different definition of life, which is that basically any sentient beings are alive, and probably even protons and neutrons are probably the first living beings inside the universe, according to Sentient Singularity Theory. You can't know for sure, because I can't even know if you really are sentient, but I assume that you are, and I think that also protons and neutrons are as well, and then probably some molecules, and then cells, and then animals. And this is this type of life in the universe. It's not this type of life where there's a bunch of different instances of independently evolving chains. It's one giant chain focusing towards a single point. And that, people are like, well, the conditions on Earth are perfect for life. Why is all cellular life related then? you would expect that like lightning would strike twice at least on here on Earth, but it doesn't seem that that's the case. And if that's the case, and cellular life, I don't want to say life because I think but cellular level life only seems to have evolved once on Earth. Why would like you expect it in on planets and in conditions that are much more hostile than this one? Doesn't make sense. Seemingly much more hostile. Not even hostile. It's just It's just not not conducive. That's what I'll say. It's a much better way of putting it. That doesn't make sense. Actually, when we look at our firsthand experience, it seems like it wouldn't make sense that there's just gotta be life out there. There's actually all the evidence that we see in our firsthand experience seems to suggest that cellular level life has evolved one time, and even in a place where conditions should be conducive. Why? Because there's something going on that it is very different than the current narrative of academia, even in biology, let alone physics. Okay. So I agree. I do think, like I said, I think that geometric unity is one of the most promising theories of theoretical physics. I don't like saying theories and theoretical in the same sentence, but that has been proposed. I think it is probably the most serious one. Anybody that says it's not serious it doesn't know what even makes something serious. If something's impactful, it's serious. If somebody says, this is my theory, it has no application, that is not a theory worth investigating, first of all, even if it's true. Second of all, it's probably not true because that's not true of anything that's real. So our science is lost. Our biologists are totally lost. It's why I didn't go into biology. I was so disheartened by the field and everything. It's the same pathological nature that Eric Weinstein talks about, that has infected every field. It's when there's no more new places or things to discover, people just become like the field goes pathological. It starts eating itself. People discover new species by just turning one species into like a billion different species based on arbitrary information. They destroy the definition of species. And now we can say that I have, discovered a new species of monitor lizard or whatever, but it's really just like a more yellow water monitor from that island instead of that one. Like it's been a while since we've discovered a truly new species. Species used to mean something very different than it means now, which it doesn't have any meaning. That is also happening in physics as well. That same phenomenon, and it's because nobody has any intuition about when it comes to, especially in the establishment, about novel ideas. And that's changing in physics right now because of the introduction of AI and computing. People are looking at it differently, but it's people who aren't physicists who are making the most progress. It's like mathematicians like Eric Weinstein, or it's computer scientists who work on AI. And that's what motivated Sentient Singularity Theory, was questions into AI and the mind. And then they seem to line up with physics. And I didn't approach, even though Sentient Singularity Theory isn't a theory of physics, it's a metaphysics theory. Metaphysics is the preceding field of physics. Physics is the preceding field of chemistry. Chemistry is the preceding field of biology. Biology is the preceding field of sociology. And sociology is the preceding field of morality, probably. Morality is probably the field and theology and morality are the most fundamental fields of them all. And they're the field you eventually end up at. They're the field that you actually start at. But so there, it's anybody that thinks that philosophy isn't relevant isn't doing philosophy. They might study other people that did philosophy, but they are not doing philosophy. When I asked a philosopher on this call with Eric, actually many years ago, at this point, it was probably 2020, 2021, probably 2020. I was on a Discord call with Eric and a bunch of mathematicians and physics PhDs and a few philosophers. And it's like Eric was talking about a lot of things, and it was very interesting talk, actually. I don't know how much I want to talk about it because even though it wasn't private, it wasn't public. But I will say that after Eric had left and most people had left, there was a philosophy professor left and a few others. And I was just listening. And he was just going on and on and on about there's not one Marx, so there's not one Marxism, there's actually three Marxes. And so there's three different Marxisms. And anybody who says otherwise doesn't know philosophy. And he just he had so much information. He was like like an encyclopedia of philosophy. But eventually but he's just going in circles. And I was like, I stopped him. And it was the first time I interjected in the conversation. I was like, what is philosophy? If in just a few sentences, can you define philosophy? And he was like, if I could define philosophy in just a few sentences, then it's not philosophy. And I was like, that is the most eloquent sounding piece of BS that I had heard in a while. It sounds really smart and it's actually really dumb. But, and then I was like, okay, what is the application of philosophy? And he goes, philosophy has no application. And I was like, okay, dude, you are memorizing Pokemon at this point. Like, that's what you're doing. And it might be enjoyable and that's fine. That's not, I do things just for the enjoyment's sake, but you are not studying things that are real in a way that actually allows you to understand them. Even though you could probably name, I could name like 4 philosophers that are, usually cited by people when talking about philosophy. And that's maybe 5, 6. And I could not tell you much about what they said specifically. I know a lot more about people who are modern philosophers because I follow what they're saying. But I can do philosophy as well as anybody I've ever seen. And the fact that he thought this means he, with all his knowledge, had no understanding. And that is true of physics, and that is true of biology. And it is important to know that when you are navigating any field, is that it is a bunch of people repeating each other. And that is just as true and worse in the UFO field as it is in anything. There's even less material for people to study in the UFO field that is, actually studyable from a first person perspective. And even less that is studyable in a, almost confirmable standpoint, I guess. So everything seems to be almost everything seems to be a lot of hearsay. It's very rare that we have anyone who is actually involved with any of this stuff actually talking about it. So in this talk, you have Eric Davis, and to get back to the talk, talking to Eric Weinstein. Eric Davis is supposedly read in to a lot of classified programs that are adjacent to the UFO subject. And yet, when he's asked in the clip that we just saw, well, maybe that we previously saw, the last clip that we saw might have been a few minutes ago at this point. I know I can go on. He says he's never seen one in a hangar. He's never actually seen one up close. He saw one in Tucson, like I saw one in LA. And I trust that that is the most important bit of information that he has on the subject. It's not that he knows people that supposedly work in these programs. That's not actually the best bit of evidence that he has for the existence of this stuff. It's his Tucson experience. And we're going to show why I think he's trusting secondhand information that he's never been able to actually confirm. And it might be some of it might be true, some of it might not, but it's, I think, led to confusion to the point where if you even think that you know for a fact that this is being covered up, and yet you've never seen one in a hangar, then you don't know for a fact. Even if they exist, even if it's true that Lockheed Martin has it stored in a basement, it doesn't matter. You've never seen it in person in that circumstance, up close. You have no idea. You might know, he might be able to claim, I know that craft exists that are utilizing technology that's different from what we are, than the state of the art that is human as we know it. Based on his Tucson experience, he can, if he said, I know that they're UFOs or whatever, flying saucers, whatever you want to call them, that unconventional craft exist, I'd be like, okay, you know. And I would claim that I know it as much as I can know it, without literally being in Bob Lazar's position, allegedly. I saw it. Multiple other people saw it. It's been corroborated by multiple witnesses who also filmed it. Same day, same thing, same location. And, but I can't claim that the government is hiding things, or that Lockheed Martin is hiding things, because I don't have any evidence of that. That's first person. And neither does Eric Davis. That's the reality. It doesn't matter that you have classified clearance. This is something that gets very stated a lot, and again and again and again, is like a form of legitimizing people. It's like saying he has a PhD in philosophy, so he must be a great philosopher. It's like, dude, you think philosophy is literally has no purpose, and you can't even define it in a coherent manner. You don't understand it. Philosophy is the study of perspective, is the best definition I've ever heard. It was my philosophy professor in college that said that. The love of wisdom is a good definition of the term, of what the term philosophy means, but it probably means more like the love of the wise one, or the wisdom from God, basically. But if you divorce theism from it, it doesn't make as much sense. But the field is a form of study, is about the study of perspective. And so if you have a PhD, it doesn't matter. And if you have classified clearances, it doesn't matter. Physicists that say there's no application to a fundamental theory of physics. Do you even know what physics is? Physics is about impact. That is what it is about. It's about physical impact. That it means it's about impact that cannot be just thought away. I can't think the door red. I have to use physics, like operate within constraints of physics, to paint it red or to turn it red in some other way. I can't just think it red. In my head, I can just think the door. Okay, that white door, now it's red. Now, and I can just imagine it. I can't do that to that door that's in front of me that you can't see. That's physics. There is no physics theory that is not applicable, that is a field, that is a real physics theory. It's impossible. It's impossible. And that's also true of philosophy. And every philosophical theory will be profoundly impactful, particularly individually to a person, which is your world. You are your world. Okay. It's not that physics world does not even is not even more fundamental than you. If you didn't exist, then there's no world to physically perceive, even. So, it's hugely impactful. And biological theories are hugely impactful. The theory of adaptation or of trait heritability, which is basically what people mean when they say evolution is just like traits. It's just the inheritance of certain traits in the context of adapting to a changing environment. That's been known forever. That's why we have dogs and chickens and corn and everything else that we have selectively bred as people to make it different from what existed before we touched it. I was talking to my wife the other day. I have two dogs. We have a Belgian Malinois, which is like a German Shepherd on crack, and we have a Cavapoo, which is a little Spaniel Poodle mix. Very funny looking pair of dogs. Like you have like the dog that went to go kill Osama bin Laden, and you have like a little poodle mix that's like a Spaniel Poodle. And the like poodle hair, like the hair, dogs that don't shed, but that need to be trimmed and groomed like poodles, that they would never survive with that hair in the wild. But we've made it. We knew how to breed it, not just different colors, but like literally create, perpetuate something that would never continue in the wild because there's nobody there to cut their hair. It would just go so matted and they would cover their eyes. They wouldn't be able to see. They wouldn't be able to move. They'd get infections. It's impossible. That's why every like wild canine has like hair like a German Shepherd that's constantly shedding because it's the only way that they could have hair. Again, convergent evolution. There's no cats with that hair either. Wild cats have hair that sheds. They have a fur coat that sheds. Every mammal that exists in the wild that has hair, I think, has hair that sheds. I don't think any of them have like poodle like type of curly hair that doesn't shed. You wouldn't be able to survive. But there's only one other naked mammal in the world, actually, interestingly enough, from convergent evolution. It's also the only other eusocial mammal that lives in a colony and constructs its own environment and lives in basically like we construct houses and apartment buildings and skyscrapers, and they dig that underground. And that's the naked mole rat. Why is the only other eusocial mammal, which we're basically eusocial, we're moving towards that, which it means that there's a caste system of built into with different roles in the society. Bees and ants and wasps are eusocial insects. The only eusocial mammal besides humans, arguably, is also the only other naturally naked mammal in the world, which is the naked mole rat. Not the odds of, what are the odds of that? Probably 100%. We've talked about it in the past, why that's the case. Being naked is, showing off your body is a valuable thing when your survival depends on the group deeming you valuable without actually knowing you personally. Lets people see your body. Which is funny because naked mole rats look hideous and makes me think that we look hideous to other animals too. But we are naked because we think it looks good to each other. It's fascinating. It makes you valuable to the group. Your survival isn't about can I resist the cold? It's like, does the group value me enough to let me into the hut that we've built collectively? But when most of them can't know you, the easiest way to portray your value is show off the goods. That's convergent evolution. Like that's amazing that there's only two naturally naked mammals. We have like hairless cats and stuff, but it is selectively bred. So there's a lot to the subject that people just don't think about. And even Eric is a much better thinker than most people. When he's saying, it bothers him that they would be bipedal, like humanoid looking, that another technological species would look humanoid, whatever that means, humanoid. Are chimps humanoid? It's, it just makes you think about what's important when it comes to classifying types of animals. They would definitely look like us. They probably would be hairless and just like us. You need a eusocial structure to have complex technology as well, by the way. You cannot have complex technology without society to build on the discoveries of the past, and to build on the discoveries of each other. Somebody invents titanium, or not just invents titanium, invents ways of fabricating titanium, and somebody else writes a paper on, the diffraction pattern of radio waves on geometric shapes, and then you combine them together and you get stealth bombers. It's like, you need so many things for that. And they're very specific. They're not, and they're all required. It is fascinating. Like, animal evolution is fascinating, and it's so much more interesting than it's ever taught in school. There's so much more going on than we know. And I know a lot more about it than most, even people who claim to know about it. From firsthand experience, not from like reading about it in books, but from seeing it in the wild, in wild animals and in captive animals across multiple generations in the same lineage, in both wild and captive animals. That's how you understand this stuff. You realize that there's really only one way to do this. And it's funny because Eric has said stuff similar. He's like, there seems to be only like one way to make a universe. And when I was on that call with him, that was actually like one thing that I will reveal, is because it was personally a statement I made, is I had said something to him and I was like, I really think there's only one way to make a universe. And he's like, yes, that seems to be the case. And of course that's the case. Otherwise you would never be able to derive a model of cosmology based on logical constraints. If there was many ways to do it, you couldn't do it. You could not derive the necessary components to be able to make predictions, because you wouldn't be able to think about causality as the constraint that it is, that is also guiding. Like, the constraints are revealing as well, and enabling. They are not just, if you want a hallway, you also need walls. So a hallway will let you get somewhere, but it also keeps you from going anywhere. So let's go to the chat. I've been seeing those blue Trimosaurus insularis for sale lately. Torin in the chat is also a reptile nerd like me. He's talking about a blue viper, which is a Komodo Island blue pit viper. That's Trimosaurus insularis. What's interesting is tonight I watched with my daughter Zootopia 2, and then one of the main characters is a Trimosaurus insularis, which is a blue Komodo Island pit viper. And it's a good movie. I recommend it. You could tell that the people who worked on the show, like, they had zoologists that knew what they were doing. In the whole of the second movie is about reptiles, by the way, Torin. Like, you will like it. The whole story. It's not just that there's a snake in it. It's like the whole story is about reptiles. And it has some social, political implications that I'm not going to get into that are fascinating as well. But this is what Torin is talking about. I have friends that work with these and breed them, actually, in captivity. I know people, I have friends that have been bitten by these, actually. They're not deadly, but they will, finger can rot away if you get bit. But they're pretty neat. Blue is a rare color in wild animals of any kind. It's just one of the rarest colors, except maybe in fish, which makes sense. But I think this is the bluest snake in the world. There are other snakes that have blue, but I think that's the only blue snake. This is just as I'm showing off now, but this is probably the bluest animal in the world. Actually, is a tiny little gecko that is called the electric blue dwarf day gecko. I have friends that work with these too. They're very endangered in the wild now, but they are bred in captivity all the time. Look at that. That's wild, man. They can literally look like that, like neon. They can change color in like a second depending on their mood. They like glow. It's crazy to see one in person. And they're tiny. They're probably 3 inches long. It's pretty neat. It's such a rare color. The boys are like this, the girls are like this. But what's interesting is that all of them are born like this, and then the males change like this when they are like a dominant male. And it's odd that like that's very common in a lot of species that live in trees, is like the babies are different from the adults. I don't know why, but there's definitely a reason, because it's very, very, very common, and it's only common in arboreal reptiles. It's not common in terrestrial reptiles. I can't even think of one off the top of my head. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but if something lives on the ground, it usually is born similar color than it grows up to be. If something lives in the trees, it probably changes dramatically. The blue racers around the Great Lakes can also be super blue. Yeah, they're blue-ish compared. But they actually do go through a change, though, which is funny that you mentioned that. They don't look the same. They look like banded and spotted and brown when they're babies, and then they turn into like grayish, bluish adults. Anyways, but the point is that like this stuff is understandable, and it is like when you understand that all of this comes down to causality and the recognition that causality is a constraint that is real and is guiding, and then you realize that there's really only one way to make a universe. There's really only one way to make a technologically advanced species in the universe too. Just for the same exact reasons, because causality is a constraint. Same reason why that being will also probably be naked. And same reason why arboreal snakes seem to change colors from babies to adults. There's something, the causality is consistent, and always. Anybody that says things like there's multiple universes, and the laws of physics in this universe is very different than the laws of physics in that universe, like Sean Carroll's model, multiverse model, and that is a workaround trying to avoid the eventual, seemingly unavoidable requirement of an agentic action by a being, meaning like God, to create everyone else. And it is absolute nonsense to believe that. It doesn't make sense with mathematics, and it doesn't make sense with logic, and it doesn't make sense with causality. There's nothing that would ever suggest that laws of physics could be anything other than what they are. It is inconsistent with your belief in these things as actually it's inconsistent with your trust in mathematics to believe that the laws of physics could be any different than what they are. It's completely inconsistent with mathematics. You either trust math or you don't. And all of them that say that anyone who believes in the multiverse also would claim to trust math. It makes me think, do you even know what a universe would be like when you say things like that? Like it's concerning. Okay. Okay. Next clip. What time is it? Oh, okay. I'm trying to keep end by midnight. It's 11:23 art my time right now. So let's go to the chat first, and then we will go to the next clip. My grandpa worked for Lockheed and such for his entire career. Yeah, that's cool. I remember we had our water tested, and when my wife and I had a number of miscarriages before we had my daughter, and we were just curious about just like environmental factors, and we looked up testing of the water in Burbank, which is where Lockheed Martin was headquartered for a while. Like I was saying earlier, all those planes they tested at Area 51, they were built inside hangars in Burbank where I lived. I have like odd connections to this to a lot of different subjects, but including this one that are just odd. Like I've never been to Area 51, but I lived right next to Burbank Airport, which is right where Lockheed Martin is actually headquartered, where those planes were actually built before they were tested at Area 51 for literally 10 years. But we had our water tested, my point is, or we looked up test results, and it was like high levels of uranium. And on the one side of our of town, we had Lockheed Martin, and on the other side of town, we had the of where we lived, we had the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So I lived between Lockheed Martin and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And no wonder there's uranium in the water. Like, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a reason. Lockheed Martin, though, doesn't. My favorite plane is made by Northrop. That's the YF-23 is the plane that lost in the competition to the F-22, but it was cooler looking. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I just said it. But yeah, I lived near where Lockheed Martin was for a while. The odds of humanoid forms are 100%. Yeah, 100%. If it exists. I don't even think that there is cellular life on other planets, actually. Like, I don't think we will ever find it. I wouldn't be that surprised if we did, but I don't think that we will. If I had to bet, I would bet that we don't. And if that's the case, then I would bet that these beings are not from another planet. I do think they're here. I saw a craft flying around the sky. I don't think that was made by people. I think that if it was, that tech would have been revealed by now. Like, you can't keep a secret forever. Even if the NSA is trying to classify whole areas of physics, people make discoveries. And just because you might silence one person or stop it in this circumstance, you might delay it, but you don't stop technological development. You don't stop evolution by if you see, if you killed all the ancestors of green tree pythons, there would still be emerald tree boas that eventually evolve. And that continues. That also happens in technology, like steel technology and the wheel. When people are like, who invented the wheel? It's like multiple people probably invented the wheel simultaneously, probably around the same time, but independently. This is happening in physics. Lots of people are coming to the same conclusions independently at the same time. Why? Because the environment is right for it. Our language is set. Our concepts of the world are shared because of our environment. We're living in the same times where there's computers, and our languages are and include words that to describe similar concepts to each other, even when they're not the same language, even if we're not talking to each other. And that just causes the same environment and we have the same pressures. You would invent, like, stealth technology even was invented, kind of not invented, but there's like two different approaches to stealth technology. Look at the F-117 Nighthawk, the first stealth plane that they fielded. That thing is they call it the Hopeless Diamond, the prototype, but this was the first one. This was Lockheed Martin's, and it's due to computer technology at the time just being so limited that they couldn't compute that much, so they had to just use faceted, like big facets on it. It's basically like they were operating in a very low resolution world at the time due to the limits of computers. So like look at graphics of games in like the 90s of computer games. This is what a plane looks like because of the limits of computing power. Now it looks real, and you can have like literally realistic looking animals in games and people, not just like pieces of technology. So you can get complex, smooth surfaces that are, moving, and like skin and stuff that's really hard to make. To replicate. But as computing technology went along, Northrop Grumman came up with this. There isn't a single hard facet on this thing surface. It's perfectly smooth everywhere. But it does the same thing. It's the opposite, though, of kind of like the F-117 Nighthawk. It's like no hard facets. Why? Computing technology. But they would have probably eventually made this, even if Lockheed Martin never made this. Just because if Oppenheimer didn't exist, they still would have made the nuclear bomb. Eventually, someone would have. Why has nobody done that with any of these supposedly classified physics technologies, like jumping? I want to call it like moment jumping. We don't have a term for it. I don't like when people say it's you can open a wormhole and you can go through the wormhole. I don't think that people who say that actually understand even much more simple physics, even if they have a PhD and they memorized equations that I have not. Like, if you think that there could be multiple different laws of physics in different universes, you don't understand logic well enough to really understand physics and have an intuition to physics. Those same guiding causal constraints are what is responsible for the creation of scientific theories and technology and physical evolution. It's non-avoidable. And it also really has a lot of implications about classification, the ability for physics to be classified. And this is like what I want to get at next, is because they talk about it, we're going to show a clip, is it possible that there are like aspects of physics that are super classified by the government, and they were purposely classified by the government, and that our academic physicists were intentionally misled? And Eric has insinuated this before in the past. If this is true, I don't think that it was a human plot to do it. I'm not saying no humans were involved. I'm just saying it's beyond people. It just doesn't make sense with everything else that we've seen and be developed. If Lockheed Martin didn't make that plane, China would have eventually made something. They wouldn't have had to steal it. They just stole it because we already made it, and then they applied it. But if we didn't make it, they would have also made it. Like, it wasn't one person who invented the wheel. Probably lots of people that simultaneously, independently invented the wheel around the same time. And that's just a fascinating thing to think about. But it actually makes a lot more logical sense. Okay, so this clip, though. Eric is asking about physicists not questioning lack of progress.
why would you not question your own lack of progress? In fact, Leonard Susskind, one of the fathers of modern string theory, was on a show of a sister podcast, Kurt Jaimungal's Theories of Everything. Or maybe it was with Lawrence Krauss. And he says, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to question, absolutely, we got this wrong. If we don't go back to the foundations, I'm just thinking like, finally, it's breaking. He says, the foundations, and he says, of string theory. I said, oh, string theory has failed, so what we need to do is not question the string assumption, but we have to go back to the foundations of string theory and fix string theory. I mean, it's an infinite sequence. So one of the questions that I have is physics just, are we not getting the obvious? Somebody figured out that physics is just too dangerous to do in a university setting.
It seems that way to me. It seems that way to me.
Because you see, now we're a joke.
That's right.
But in 79, 77, you had these two Streisand effect problems. You had a guy named John Aristotle Phillips, who was a junior at Princeton, who chose Freeman Dyson for his advisor for his junior thesis. And he said, look, I'm the Princeton mascot. I'm not really very good at physics. Can we use the fact that I'm not really good at physics to do something novel? And Dyson said, like what? He said, well, I want to design an atomic weapon, and I want you to tell me whether my design would work using my limited understanding of physics. And Dyson said, as long as I give you no information, I simply tell you whether it would work or not, you do it all 100%, you're on. So he submitted his junior thesis. Dyson took one look at it and said, yeah, this will work. They removed page 20. And I believe it is not found in the Princeton library with all of the other junior theses.
Oh, really?
You've never heard this story?
I've not heard that story before. That's news.
Okay. Well,
that's very interesting. Very, very telling.
John Aristotle Phillips is the guy who is at the center of that. There's another guy named Howard Moreland who worked for the Progressive magazine. And he had the assignment, see if you can figure out, with no knowledge of physics, the Teller-Ulam design for the hydrogen bomb. And he did it. And he did it because all of the information had been sharded and discarded and declassified. He basically put the pieces of the broken coffee cup back together by being meticulous. So it was an archaeology and reassembly. It was a reverse engineering program from the shredder of theoretical physics.
Yeah, I agree with that. That sounds like it.
Okay, well, that violates restricted data, which is this bizarre doctrine that comes from the 50s.
Okay, so I want to clear up something just because I said it, and I don't want to. I think it's important that I clarify what I was saying earlier. The wheel situation, where multiple people probably invented the wheel simultaneously across the world at around the same time, that is not applicable once the world is in a situation where everything is such a global exchange of ideas. It's not exactly the same, where everybody simultaneously is coming up with the same ideas. That can happen, but what I mean is that it does become like this, like evolution. All evolution, I think, goes like this, because causality goes like this. It starts like this: one initial causer hits the first domino, and it spreads out. Because initially, like in the most fundamental sense, you're not just causing change in circumstances. When we're talking about cosmology, really fundamentally, you're talking about generation and causation, like causation in the context of generation, because things don't exist yet. You have to make things. Like there was a point where there wasn't even there was just one thing, and or one being, and so every other being has to be made along the way as for them to. That's the beginning of impacting them. So you have to create as you are causing effects. You have to create that which must be what can be affected. This is just like very truth involving very fundamental metaphysics. It's why my models, I think actually why I was as successful as I was with the models that I created of the metaphysics of cosmology, because I didn't have the contextual background of a lot of math, of high level mathematics or anything like that. And so I had to kind of come up with my own novel, weird ways of representing the things that I wanted to represent, which is I used Excel. And it looks like cellular automata, which is actually it's just not automated because I'm not good enough at coding to have done that. But this is constructed like, and also cause. So you have to create the cell and generate the input, what's inside it at the same time. So if I remove this, everything disappears inside of it. But the input and all the circumstances of in which the input can be input or embodied, you could say, or physically manifested. For this, basically, we're talking about information internally and like a physical circumstance or container for it to manifest with this model. So you need a model that is co-generative of the information within it and of the place to put the information. Okay, because if you're talking about the beginning of the universe, you have to generate the universe and the information in it at the same time. You can't just generate the information in the universe before the universe exists, and you really also can't generate a universe without it intrinsically being constructed of it and therefore encapsulating information within it. And so that's basically what this is representing. And so you can't really do it in the most traditional way. All of these are building on each other and referencing each other, and there's equations going on. This is not like, this is an actual equation that's testing, it's about constraints. It's about, you need to start with a division that gives you two separate parts, one of which can fit inside the other. That's the logic that's going on with this. I've done streams about it. It's not just random nonsense. But then once you hit that, you can actually create a circumstance in which there's information where there's like a nestedness of information that's generated internally, or that can be contained inside of other information. And so that's a necessary thing to have multiplicity of any kind in the universe, but fundamentally multiplicity of sentience. But you need that kind of model. And but the point is that if I was thinking about the world from the perspective of like just building on things that have already been done, okay, I would never have been able to do this. And if Eric even is, and this metaphysics theory is a metaphysics theory, so it's more fundamental than a theory of physics. That doesn't mean it's better, or it's just a different, it's like the difference between a theory of chemistry and a theory of biology. They can be co-compatible. Hopefully they are. If one of them is true, then for the other one to be true, they have to be compatible at least. But that's all it is. It's just two different fields, but it's not competition. I think geometric unity is really probably onto something. And but if all you're trying to do is, we need a fixed string theory, like he said, Leonard Susskind said, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to fix string theory. You're not going back to the beginning at all. You're not starting from the beginning. You're starting from the presumption that we have to assume a bunch of assumptions that haven't netted out. And I don't even know which ones he's assuming specifically. Like when you say back to the beginning of string theory and fixed string theory, what is string theory? It's the universe is a bunch of, actually fundamentally, it's a bunch of tiny vibrating strings. That means nothing, by the way. Nothing on its own. Strings of what? I'm not even saying it's wrong. I'm just saying strings of what? Information? Okay, well, if that's the case, now we're in metaphysics. Maybe it is strings of information. I think it is. If the universe is made of strings, it is made of strings of information. Which are really like, contextualized and constructed within and by strings of sentient beings. But you're not, if you're we're going back to the string theory, we're going to fix it. You're not going back to the beginning. You have to actually start from scratch. And in the video that I made for Kurt Mungel's, speaking of Kurt Mungel, his podcast, or his show, he had a competition, a video competition for physics, consciousness, math, and I think there was 5 winners first, and then there was 5 first place winners, 2 second place winners, basically. And I was one of the second place winners. I think you called it like the runner ups, but winners, by winners, I mean like there was a cash prize. This people who got second place got $500 from Brilliant. Is sponsored by Brilliant and the like learning software company. And then the 5 winners got like $1,000 each, I think. And I got $500 from it. Really grateful for that. But the video that I made, it's on my channel. It's the first video that pops up when you first visit my channel. It's called Theories of Everything, the How-To Guide. And I say in it, instead of trying to piece together 2 theories, if you want to create a more fundamental theory that explains what we currently have, you can't build it on things that we currently have. Even if those things are right, you have to throw it all out and start from scratch and build something based on the constraints of logic and causality and first your firsthand experience as well, information that comes from your firsthand experience, and then see if where you get aligns with other models. Sentient Singularity Theory does seem to align with the symmetries in the standard model. It does not align with Sean Carroll's multiverse. It does not. It seems to line up with geometric unity. It does not seem to line up with whatever it is that string theory is, because string theory doesn't seem to line up with much. I realized there were some things that it seemed to have led to, but it actually didn't. We have had there's been zero physical impact. There's been zero physical impact by string theory. It's not a theory of physics. It's not. And if it is, it's a failed one. By definition. By definition. And they don't question that. Why? Because the people that are being paid attention to in society are being looked to for the wrong reasons. And it's kind of like the naked mole rat thing. Is like when you don't know somebody, you need a very quick way of judging whether or not you should trust them for some reason, or value them, value their opinion, value them in the group. And if you're not interested in them for potentially being just labor or mating, like, then how do you ascribe value in a shorthand way? Academic accreditation. That's how. The problem is that is not actually real context. It's not awarded in real context. Like, people who get PhDs in subjects in school are getting it because they were good at taking what people had already discovered in the past, probably not in school, and then not by being students of other people, but by being explorers, individually motivated and passionate and brave explorers, even cognitively. And they just build on it. And, or they don't build on it. They just take it and they regurgitate it and repackage it, and then they get accreditation. None of that is actually showcasing your ability to perform and do the field. You can describe the field, but you can't do the field. Maybe you can perform and describe the field. You can do the field and describe the field. That's the ideal. But the system of accreditation rewards you for describing the field. Look at even medicine. Do you know how many doctors in this world said that the COVID vaccine was safe before it had even been tested? It had even been put out and used by any significant number of people for any significant number of time, a length of time. I'm not saying it's not safe. I'm not saying it is dangerous. I will say I know people personally who went to the emergency room after taking it for the first time in their life. and they believed that it would work, so otherwise they wouldn't have taken it. And I also know most of the people that I know that got it, nothing happened to them. Then they still got COVID. I do know that because the person who gave me COVID for the first time had been vaccinated. That I know. But they all said that it was safe. It's not a matter of it doesn't matter if it's safe or not. That's not the point. The point is that it's impossible for them to have known if it was safe long term because it had been a few months. It had not been years or decades or multi-generations. People who had gotten it had not gotten pregnant and then had babies, and then you could see that it didn't stop people from doing that. It doesn't seem to have, but like we had no idea. You just don't know until you know. And the fact that they couldn't even think through logically whether or not, like, what was the limit of what they could know is the problem. And it shows that not only is there no intuition, no intuitive ability to go beyond what others have done in our field. It shows just a general like lack of understanding of what it means to think. But Eric Davis, you know, he claims to know that a lot about the subject, and again, he seems like a smart guy, and I'm not saying he's not in some ways, but he doesn't know any more than I know about the subject. Actually, he's heard probably more stories than I have, and those stories have come from people who have clearances. That's the same thing as a PhD. It doesn't mean anything. It means that you served the system thought you were valuable enough to itself to give you an accreditation or an endorsement. That's it. And plenty of people have classified clearances for all kinds of reasons, and a lot of them have no idea how to think. And I'm not saying he has no idea how to think, but it's clear that he's not thinking in this circumstance. He doesn't even understand the limit of what he knows. This is what people need to realize, not just about this subject of the UFO subject. It's just very good example, but it's so many subjects, every subject, from the shape of the Earth to if you're not an astronaut, to the UFO subject, to evolution. If you learned about stuff from other people and that's how you have the information, you don't know if you understand it. You might actually understand it, but you do not know if you understand it. You might know the information that you think you know might be correct, but you don't know that you know. You know? It's not even a rhyme. If you say no and then no and then no at this 3 times in a row, that's not even rhyming. That's like something else. I don't know what it is called, but I'm sure there's a word for it. Again, another thing about this is like language is another thing that we talk about on here. There's no true synonyms in any language. It's impossible for 2 words to exist in the same language that mean the exact same thing. It doesn't happen. And if 2 different words do come, first of all, there's lots of reasons for this. For one, why would you keep 2 words around if they mean the same thing? You wouldn't. That doesn't mean people don't use different words in the same circumstances interchangeably, but that doesn't mean that the words actually linguistically mean the same thing. The true meaning of words comes from etymology, which is what words did you use to construct that another word. And so you can only do that once. Like you can't, how do you construct the word, 2 different words for airplane that mean the same exact thing? People say aircraft, airplane. No, I'm talking about the word. I'm not talking about what we use the word for. I'm talking about actually what the word means. An aeroplane means something different than an aircraft. That's why not every aircraft is an aeroplane. Some aircraft are airplanes, but then some aircraft are helicopters. and they're not airplanes. Why? Because there's no true synonyms, and there would be no language. If language would not be possible, if synonyms would be possible. It's the same thing as like Sean Carroll's multiverse. If different laws of physics were possible, then nothing would be possible because causality would not be real. And you wouldn't be able to, not only would things not be able to exist, but for you to study, you wouldn't be able to to propose theories about it because you couldn't use logic to deduce a prediction about something, even if it did exist. But the reality is that if you couldn't use logic to deduce a prediction about something, because causality could change, then that means causality doesn't exist again. It all falls apart, and because there's only one way to make a universe, and everything else within it as well. People are like, there's different ways to skin a cat. No, there's not. There's one way to skin a cat. It's by skinning a cat. That's how. Howdy, Tyler. Hope all is well. Thank you. How's it going? My wife said y'all the other today or yesterday for the first time to one of her friends, and I was like, wow, we've officially become Texans. So howdy. There are groups that look alike. Probably a lot of elitism in our secret tech. There's so much elitism in every institution, but especially when it's classified, because there is power in knowing things that others don't sometimes, and there's also a feeling of superiority involved, and and you don't want everybody to know it, because then you're not special anymore. I'm not claiming that's the motivation for classification. Usually it's not, but sometimes it is. But it does lead to like issues, social issues involving classified programs. And there's so many issues with them. Like there's no accountability. There's lots of things, but I don't think that we could classify, if humans had discovered on their own, humans as we know it, in our current circumstances, had figured out, like people say in this field, they'll be like, Russia has recovered UFOs, the United States has recovered UFOs, and China has recovered UFOs, and they're all in a race to reverse engineer anti-gravity and wormhole, teleportation, basically. And I call it moment jumping. When Eric talks about two-time physics or multiple time dimensions as being the relevant factor, then more so than like spatial additional spatial dimensions is like the potential for additional temporal dimensions. I think that language is probably not specific and accurate enough, because we're building it on concepts that are probably a little flawed in the first place, but I think that where he's trying to go with it is probably truer. It's like when I said it was over here, that craft that I filmed, and then it was over there, and then it was over there. What's actually happening is it's jumping like almost between moments, especially if space and time are kind of the same structure, just two different perspectives of the same structure, which they are, according to Sentient Singularity Theory. And also even our current conceptualization of physics, you're jumping not just spatially, you are jumping from moment to moment, basically temporally and spatially. I don't think you can jump between. You can't have one happen without the other. Like they are going to be interlinked, and you have to think about what that implies as like for people observing it from the outside of this, of what some technology that's responsible for jumping you between different moments of causality, really, like, and then also from the perspective of the people inside. So like, what does it look like from the perspective of an alien or a gray or whatever you want to call them, an HI, who's inside a UFO or inside a saucer or whatever craft that jumps from here to there, what does it look like to them versus what does it look like to us on the outside? You have to think about that kind of thing. But instead people are thinking about wormholes. It's like, what are you doing? Sorry, but but if this is a competition between nations of just reverse engineering technology, none of them have cracked it yet at all. I mean, there's just so much to say about this that I want to say that's simultaneously going on, because that's just what happens in every system, is that there are simultaneous, other than the very beginning of creation, like there's simultaneous I guess components to every circumstance that are relevant, simultaneously different components to every circumstance that are simultaneously relevant, and that increases in as you scale up in like the complexity of institutions that are created and navigated by beings that are made of molecules that are made of atoms and made of married protons and neutrons, but the nuclear family of protons and neutrons. But it's there. You just have to. There's so much going on, and same thing with our academic system. It's like our academic system is responsible for, in some ways, in many ways, probably most ways, like the lack of progress, is that it has created simultaneously, again, it has created simultaneous inputs that are creating responsible for certain things, like the fact that it is what it has done to our accreditation and what it has done to restricting people from practicing thinking while you're just sitting at a desk memorizing things in your most formative years of your life, the majority of your waking hours. You don't get time to practice thinking for yourself, and it's not rewarded. It's punished. I know that because I was punished in school all the time. And for being bad or mean ever. It was like, I was thinking for myself. And, the first time I went to detention, it was because I didn't do the warm up problem in elementary school on the board. It wasn't graded, and that I thought I understood. And so I was just chilling. And the teacher was like, Tyler, you need to do the warm up. And I was like, why am I being graded for it? And she was like, no. I was like, but I understand this. This isn't something I need to practice. And she was like, but it's going to warm up your brain. And I literally went like this. I was like, yeah, but my brain's already warm. And she literally threw me into the principal's office. And that was the first time I got sent to the principal's office. That's actually thinking for yourself, though. And if you do that kind of thing, it's not rewarded in school, which means those types of people are not going to be accredited, which means those types of people are not going to be listened to in society by people who don't understand the field. And so, there isn't a physicist that I can think of that it has like a lot of clout with the establishment right now that really claims to understand quantum mechanics. They just repeat things like, if you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. That's the same BS line that philosopher gave me, by the way, when he was like, if I could define philosophy in just a few sentences, then it's not philosophy. Okay, you sound smart, but you're being dumb. But that's like, there's a lot going on here, but the school system in and of itself could on its own hinder our physics progress completely. But that doesn't mean, but the thing is that if there's craft that have been recovered and they do have this stuff, then then there are people aware of at Lockheed Martin, even if it's just a handful, that there's physics abilities beyond our current understanding at all. And that would be true of Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and certain people in the government at the Pentagon, and also people in the Russian government, and also people at in the Chinese government. But yet you're going to tell me that academic physicists across the world still are completely lost in even thinking about like how to do this. And you need people like Eric Weinstein, who's not a physicist by accreditation, but is a physicist by practice, more so than as much as any physicist, at least currently living today, that is a physicist by accreditation, and more of a physicist than most physicists who are physicists by accreditation, to come in and upend the field. Or you need Stephen Wolfram to come in and introduce new ideas, and he's not a physicist by accreditation. And even some of my models they're metaphysics models, but they have absolutely physics implications. And nobody here is a physicist. Some of them have PhDs and others do not. But I do not. That doesn't mean anything either. If a degree in physics doesn't matter, then a degree at all doesn't matter. But the thing is like, if there are people that are aware of this in all these different countries and they're really competing, and it's still super classified, and we've never made a breakthrough. Who's responsible for the lack of disclosure? It's not people. It's not. And who's responsible for any kind of like maybe intentional misguiding of humanity towards fake directions in physics, or any intentional confusing of people in the world of physics across the world, across multiple decades? It's not people. If it's not humans as we know it, if it is happening, it's just not. Anybody that's like, we need the government to declassify stuff, we need Lockheed Martin to reveal things, guys. If these beings are real and here, whatever, no matter where they're from, and they really select people are allowed to have this technology operable, it means that they're being allowed to hold this technology for certain reasons. Like if they were really worried enough to stop our physics progress, to try and come up with a plan to societally stop our physics progress. By the way, there's a plot line in that movie, that show. Oh man, is it breaking? No. Okay, the stream looked like it was cutting out. What the three body problem? It's about aliens that are like trying to confuse our technology so that we don't pose a threat to them, and like, why are they letting people have these craft at Area S4? Why not just go in there and take it away? Instead, you're letting like Bob Lazar hit hammers on it or something. Like, there's definitely like some kind of agreement of some kind going on where we're not the ones in charge. Like, we're just not. And there's so many implications about this that people have not thought through. And the idea that Lockheed Martin is the ones who are like responsible for the cover up, or the Pentagon is responsible for the cover up, and they're not some of them taking orders potentially, or being, I don't know, manipulated in other means that I can't even think of. Like, they're not the ones leading the show, guys. Some government at this point would have revealed it. If there's 3 countries in the world even that have recovered craft, at this point, one of them would have been like, we've got this stuff. If they weren't being told by someone else, or being made by someone else to keep it under wraps. I don't know. Maybe you can only keep the craft if you don't tell anyone. And also, maybe we're going to have Ed Witten confuse your physicists or something. I don't know. Like, but I will say, like, as the lack of progress, I think can actually just be explained purely by our schooling and what it's done. People don't realize, like, our scholastic model are that we have today of just this centralized education, I guess, path is not the norm for ever in human society up until like less than 100 years ago, probably. It's a brand new institution. There was universities and stuff like that prior, going back thousands of years, but they were like for the arts to some degree, and also for, theology and things like that. Especially when it comes to like studying secondhand information, it was like theology. It's like you went to, study at the Catholic Church or something, or at the temple, and that was the institution of learning. But everything else that involved actual work, like physical work, there wasn't more just conceptually focused, required going to work. Like the people who were learning with you weren't learning about how to fix a car or learning how to build something. We're not learning about it by not doing it and reading books about it. They were learning about doing it by doing it. Apprenticeship was the norm. Even for artists, it was the norm. It's not even the norm for artists anymore, or people that get degrees in art or whatever. Like it's not apprenticeship based. But I have a mentor in zoology. I am basically, majority of my life was spent doing an apprenticeship just because I wanted to, and still to this day. But that's real education. You have to do it. If you take people out of the real world to teach them about the real world, you can't teach them about the real world. You can't. And even if you teach them things that are true, they can't know it's true. And if the people don't learn, thinking is something you practice. It's not something that you're good at because you have a high IQ and you're bad at if you have a low IQ. It's something that anybody can get good at, and but it takes practice. There's no other way to get good at it. It's like any skill. There are people that are naturally more talented thinkers than others, but everyone can get better at it, and everyone is worse at it than they could have been if they don't practice. And if your time is spent memorizing and not doing things in a context in which you can see the impact of your actions, which is direct and firsthand feedback on whether or not what you were doing was correct, you cannot practice thinking. Even if you get the facts right, you actually don't know if they're right. And you can't think beyond what you've learned because you're not very well practiced at thinking. And this is what's happening. And again, Eric Davis, he sounds smart, and I'm sure he is with many things much smarter than most people. He seems that way. His curiosity is part of intelligence, I think, even, and or just smartness. He seems curious enough to even entertain the subject. But yet he claims to know things without having seen it in person, which means you're not thinking about thinking enough. And in this next clip, he directly claims, when Eric is like, why are we not thinking about new ideas? And Eric Davis says, I don't have any intuition into what that would even be. Like, I have to think about wormholes because that's what people have talked about. And I can't think of any other way of that you would go from this moment to that moment. That's why physics is broken, because every field is broken. And if you know what's going on in biology and zoology, and you see that it's the same thing as physics, and same thing with even politics, and in every field, It's the same in every field. It's not just physics that's failed. It's all of them. It's all of them. Which makes me think this is not mainly about like a conspiracy to hide physics. Even if there is conspiracies to hide physics, I do believe that, by the way. I just don't think that that's what's responsible for the lack of progress in the field. It's every field. I don't think there is a conspiracy to stop philosophy or a conspiracy to stop, biology or zoology or the study of herpetology specifically, even like reptiles and amphibians. There isn't aliens or governments trying to stop people from understanding vipers better, but yet they are. They're not able to think, and we're not able to know who to look to, because who do you look at? There's content everywhere. You know what gets you eyes? Having a PhD. You can blab about your inconsequential, untestable theory of everything that apparently is a theory of nothing that gets you a TED Talk. Why was that even given the time of day? Like, what is going on? Because he has a PhD in physics. That's why. And so I don't know the way around this. I think about it a lot, because I consider like even me going back and getting a degree in philosophy, but I would do it just for the clout, to be taken seriously by people who haven't actually looked at my work. And it's like, yeah, that might get people to look at your work, more people to look into your work, but I'm not going back because I want to learn. I'm not saying I wouldn't learn some things, but I would be going back just for the clout, for the accreditation that I think is BS anyways. So I'm very conflicted by it. But like me recognizing that this is a constraint on everybody. Like you are the top. Eric Weinstein has a PhD, and he is by the people, at least a lot of the establishment publicly. And it's not just the physics establishment. I think he knows a lot of people personally in the physics world, because that's his world. But like, you look at people who are part of the academic establishment, even people like Dave Farina, people that, yeah, they don't work for academia, but their primary focus is on upholding the respect and revere for the establishment that is currently there, because it even props up him, because he's just repeating what other people have done. So of course, like, that means like the establishment currently, of the establishment narrative. He loses like clout if the establishment isn't upheld, even though he's not he's not a professor, even though it says Professor Dave. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. Because I don't think you need to have a PhD, but just saying, he's not working at a university, and yet he's still benefiting from his legitimacy, or not legitimacy, the revere and the trust that is placed in him by people who watch his content is only because he is repeating things that other people have said that are accepted by the establishment. So that's not a criticism. It's just a recognition of the circumstance. That is the circumstances that is going to stop physics and zoology and biology and chemistry and medicine. Everything. Guys, we built aircraft that went like Mach 3 And when people are like, we supposedly went to the moon, but we somehow can't do it anymore. It's like, dude, we had people who were good thinkers, who were in charge of the institutions that are now not led by people who came up in organically and in charge of things, and they built the stuff that is currently taught in school. It's like the people who created Facebook and Google are not the people who, at least Google, it's not the same people that run it. It's not. People who created Google dropped out of Harvard, and the people who now run it got straight A's at Harvard and a degree. Very, very different types of people. That is what will stop physics. It doesn't even matter. That's the only thing that could stop physics from having real like progress until new institutions are made. Eric is constantly trying to like, and he'll say this, and we'll look at a clip in a minute. I know I'm going past the time, but whatever. I say this every week. I say I'm going to end at midnight. I don't end at midnight, but I also start later than I say I'm going to. Eric said, he seems to want to, and I didn't go to Harvard like he did, and I don't have any connection to it. I liked my school. I went to NAU, but I have no like desire to uphold the academic establishment. And I recognize that I actually have like like my instincts or my emotions are against it. Like I want to tear it down, but that's not a good thing. I'm just saying it's good to be aware of that motivation or those feelings, not even motivations. But that's not really my motivations because I'm aware of it. But I don't have any like hope for actually. Not only do I not have the motivation, the emotional connection, or the personal experience with higher, like our education institutions that is positive, I also don't see any logical hope for trying to preserve these institutions and have them continue to be like the leading like birthplaces of the best thinkers in the world. I just don't, because of the what's it called? Not constraints, or the incentive structures driving, deciding who's there and who's not. It's just about incentives. Like there's no saving it. It's the same thing as like he's like, why are we trying to save string theory? Why would we go back and try and fix string theory? It's just broken. Yes. Why would you go back, Eric, and try and fix the institutions? They're broken for the same reason. They are. You can't save them. We need to create new communities. And that is happening right now. Like, honestly, Coach Uncle's Theories of Everything channel is probably the very beginning of that, of the creation of a new renaissance in physics and science, maybe in general. Like, it will eventually be an establishment that will suffer from the same. Any establishment will eventually suffer from the same perils, but not right away. Like, but you're not going to save the old ones. There's just too much that matters more to those institutions than progress. Way too much. Eric has this concept called the ego, the embedded growth obligation. It's about everybody's little tiny personal circumstances summing to like just grow for the sake of growth. That's why they make new species out of species that already exist in zoology right now. It's one of the funniest ones is there's a lizard from the United States. One of my favorite lizards. It's called the chuckwalla. It's a little vegetarian. It's not little. It's one of the biggest lizards in the United States, but it's, still like this big. It's like a foot long. But it's still probably the second biggest lizard in the United States. Not even close to the biggest lizard in the world, though. If you're not counting iguanas in Florida, which I think actually you should count now. But they're actually the biggest lizard in the United States. After that, it's the Gila monster, and after that, I mean, Florida has all kinds of things that live there now that aren't from there, but naturally, like the chuckwalla is a pretty big lizard from the United States, and it's this vegetarian lizard, lives in the Southwest. It's very cool, and its scientific name was Surromalus obesus. Okay, and the reason for this is because their defense mechanism is to go into a crack and puff up, make themselves fat, so you can't pull them out of the crack in the rock. And they make themselves fat, like the Surromalus obesus. They make themselves obese. That makes sense. It's a description of the animal. They changed it because why? I don't know. To something that does not describe the animal as much, probably because of, I don't know, being PC or something. They didn't want to insult fat people. I really think that's probably what it was. But the fact that it was even allowed, it's like, who allowed that? Why wasn't there some type of something that stopped that from happening, being like, no, that animal already has a name and it's a description of the animal. Like, why would we change it? And that's happening in all fields. It's crazy. It's not because of aliens or Lockheed Martin. I'm not saying they're not doing anything to like put disinformation out there. They probably are. Whatever these beings are. I don't think they're aliens, but grays, whatever. It's like that's not the point. Like we have no control over that anyway. So like, why worry about it? But what we do have is that is much more observable to us is like the failure of our institutions. And Eric, this is something I disagree with him on, is when he's like, it's just, we need to pay these people more, the physicists that are failing in these institutions that are failing, because that's how they're going to be able to do the good work and succeed. And I'm not going to comment on like if there's any other reasons why he's going to say this. I'm not saying it's malicious, but he just knows people that I don't. It's a personal thing for him that it isn't for me. But I don't see how that actually like will help anyone. People who go into academia do not go into it for the money anyways. And people who study fields and make progress in fields do not do so because of the money. I get paid nothing to study reptiles, and I spent countless hours at countless study sites across the southern United States. Why? Because I like it. That's why. Like, why do I do metaphysics on here every day? Nobody's paying me on here. Except Brilliant one time, $500. Thanks to Kurt and Brilliant.com. But that is not enough for me to put 3 hours in late at night once a week for 4 years into this project. It's just not. I do it because I'm obsessed. And I think that it's important. Like, that's why. No one paying people is not a relevant factor to whether or not things get done in the world. It's just not. I'm not saying it's not important, but it is not what it's funny because I'm like thinking back on the fact that I went to finance and switched my major to finance because instead of biology, and I chose finance because it had the highest average income like post-graduation, and I didn't know what I wanted to do other than biology, so I went to finance. I got a degree in finance. But the thing is so that seems like that's an example where I'm wrong, but that's actually, so I was questioning myself for a second, but like, am I an example of proves my own statement wrong? But no, that's not true, because I wanted to go into biology, even though I knew it wasn't going to be paid well. And I was so disheartened by the field. So I left, not because it wasn't paying. And then I went into finance because I didn't know anything else that I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just picked the default, whatever's going to make money, I guess, and be applicable in many cases. And then I actually went and interviewed with finance companies, and literally at one of my interviews, and where they offered me a job was at a financial advisory firm or financial management company in Phoenix, Arizona. Out of college, I got this job offer, and I went to this interview. And the interviewer, the guy who interviewed me, he's like, I don't know if you noticed the cars in the parking lot, but the Porsches and the Mercedes and the BMWs, that's the kind of car that you could drive with the money that you'd be making if you worked here. And I turned the job down, and I went and got a job doing something that I didn't even know what it was. Actually, it was just like, I wanted to move. And I accepted a salary that was legally below minimum wage, to the point where after the company had done mass layoffs, the company found out that they had actually missed an obscure law in California's legal code and had to back pay all these people that didn't even work for the company anymore. And so they had to like they like sent me money after I wasn't even working there anymore because I was paid below minimum wage. But I still accepted the salary that I did over the financial firm. So people don't do things for money. I'm especially like not money motivated, but like people still, the people that do things for money are doing things for money. They're not doing things to do things, and then the money is motivating, is additionally motivating. That's not true. At least of people who make progress, like the innovators and leaders in any field. You have to be individually self-motivated and to the point of obsession above like almost anyone else to be a leader and an innovator in any field. None of that is motivated by money. So I don't agree with Eric on the fact that like it's just a matter of we need to pay these people and we need to save the institutions because institutions are important. Institutions are inevitable, but eventually you need new ones, like not to save the old ones. I'm not a fan of no institutions. It's not possible. We just have, that society doesn't exist without institutions. But like when the incentive structures are every incentive structure is so overpowering against the original goal of the institution, you can't salvage it. It's impossible. This was I know I went so much longer and so much more talking just myself, but please hit the like button if you found this interesting. We're going to wrap it up soon. I know I went. Which kind of shows we are domesticated? We also elephants and maybe armadillos, species of pigs that have more or less hair in the wild, and also whales. Whales don't count, but look at whales. Super big social groups that are almost kind of moving towards eusociality. But it's not, they live in the water. It's different. But elephants is a good example of a more bald animal. But again, they kind of have a caste system a little bit and very complex social groups. They're kind of leaning towards eusociality, and they have an appendage that lets them walk around and like pick things up. They're probably the closest thing. Like the animal, if any animal was going to become technologically ascend, people, I remember seeing this show on Discovery Channel. They were like predicting that if humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth, it might have been cephalopods like octopus and squid that moved onto land. And I understand why people would say that. I don't believe it. And the one that would come the closest, you can't say apes because we are that, is probably elephants. But the thing about elephants is as dexterous as their trunk is, you need two hands and thumbs, and two different types of fingers in order to like do really complex manipulations. Not of things that already exist, but of to the point of creating things that didn't already exist, like this pen. Imagine making this pen if you had one trunk. like even just one hand. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, how do you even hold things together? Hold things while also doing things to it. You know, you need to be able to hold something and also manipulate things while also manipulating it. You just, they don't have the degrees of freedom because they have one trunk, but they probably are they might be the most technologically advanced animal besides humans, even. It's elephants. They're pretty advanced. Maybe more so than chimps. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if you looked into it. But the thing is, like, they both have very similar, like, levels that they can't go beyond. Like, we grab this stick and we break it into the size that we want. We picked out the one that we want, and, like, then we go and we use it for something. But how do you sharpen a knife with one trunk? You know, I don't know. Okay. Anti-theism is a huge hindrance to our physics progress, a lack of our scientific progress, by the way. Like, it's an enormous problem. If God actually exists, and which logically, like, where's the first cause? There's other reasons why God seems inevitable anyways, but and I talk about them, but even just that, it's like, if that is true, and everybody's got the base wrong in academia, how are they going to have the intuition to build a physics model? It's like Sean Carroll, when Sean Carroll blocked me because he made that video where it's like, you know, he's got his multiverse model. What is it? It's actually an attempt to create a model that doesn't require any kind of initial cause, intentional cause, to do something different, because that's what the intentionality is about. It's like change. It's like there was singularity and then there was multiplicity. It's like, what? Why? Choice. It's like, there's one way to, my work implies not just that there's one way to make a universe, which Eric would agree with that. I know he agrees with it because he told me directly. But my work also implies that it's that God had no choice in how he made the universe, or at least very little choice. No choice in the laws, but maybe a little bit of, you know, there's some autonomy. It's like you can only fly a plane one way, but like you can choose where you fly. Like that's you can have degrees of freedom within constraints. But the thing is it seems like he had no choice in how to make a universe, which is like the laws of physics, results in the laws of physics. But it also implies that he had to choose to do it, because otherwise, where's the change come from without intentionality? It's not possible. Sean Carroll's multiverse model or whatever is that we're just in the universe that allows for life. So many problems with it, but it is an intentional. I'm not saying he is doing it. He's conscious of his motivations, but it is ultimately motivated by an attempt to create a model that doesn't require an initial cause, or any kind of intentionality. That not an initial cause, but any kind of intentionality. That's what it is. It's an attempt to avoid intentionality behind the cosmos. It just is. And at the same time, it's like, that stuff matters. Like, if all you build is on other bits of information, like, then you can't continue to advance. You can't, like, if you don't believe in God and God does exist, like, that matters to how much you can, to the limit of your ability to extrapolate beyond your current circumstances, if you don't have the foundations of causality correct. But it seems like God had no choice in how he made the universe, but he had to choose to make it. That has implications on physics, chemistry, biology, everything, morality. That's not the norm of our normative assumption of our academia. I will say this, but Eric said this finally, and I've been saying this on here. If you follow my channel, I'm like, guys, if there's a grand conspiracy to hide like the existence of these beings, then we're not, our governments are not the ones doing it. It's them who's stifling disclosure. It's not disclosure. It's not us. And this, Eric is like one of the first people that I've heard actually like say this. This is the first time that I've seen him say it too.
It was aware of multiple temporal dimensions where we're only.
But I don't know what it sounds like he's garbling stuff to himself.
And if we had an adversary that was aware of multiple temporal dimensions where we're only aware of one, so we have an arrow of time, and they would have
multiple,
like a right-hand rule of time. It would be have you thought much about the threat assessment as to what capabilities
no, nobody does threat assessments like that, but I would say that is something worth having a threat assessment done on.
And are you aware of reports that we are being, I wouldn't say menaced, but
monitored?
Made to know that we do not control our space?
Yes.
Do you find that highly credible?
Yes.
What percentage?
100, because it was definitive. That was told to me definitively, not speculatively. We know this to be true.
So I've been told the same thing by multiple parties who are not related, all of whom seem like credible people. Yet nobody seems to have direct firsthand.
Yeah. Even I can't get into that level. I mean, Harry Reid tried.
Bingo to Eric. And that's a loss. That's an F, or whatever the young people say. I may look young. I'm like 35 years old. Married with a kid. But like whatever they say, put an F in the chat. Like for Eric Davis, you cannot say I'm 100% confident in something that you have no firsthand experience with. And Eric's next question and next follow-up statement was very important. Nobody seems to have firsthand experience except one person that has come out, and that was Bob Lazar. And his story is definitely the most interesting because of it. And there's a lot about Bob Lazar's story that has been that is able to be confirmed by statements that he had made in the past. Like Eric Davis says that he knows because other people told him that Bob Lazar only worked as like a janitor basically at EG&G in Las Vegas. He didn't actually work at Area S4 or let alone Area 51. It's like Bob Lazar had stated that the way that he got into the building was by putting his hand on a device that shined a light through your hand and measured the bones in your hand, like before there was fingerprint stuff and eye stuff, like just biometric locks. There's like early biometric lock. And then eventually the government revealed that they had this. And not only that they had this, people said that they were using this at the Tonopah test range just north of Area 51. And it was also at Area 51. It's probably also at the S4 base that Bob Lazar worked at. And that kind of stuff matters. It doesn't prove anything, but it does. That kind of stuff matters way more than just like someone told you. It's like somebody said something and then way later something comes out, or like in a different circumstance, what they said gets confirmed in a circumstance that's not connected. It's not just a bunch of people repeating the same stuff. That's the thing about Bob Lazar that was different, is he wasn't repeating what other people had said. He said things that then later have been able to be confirmed, like him working at Los Alamos, his whole story about meeting, how he got the job apparently at working on these craft was he asked for a reference and for help finding a new job he asked Edward Teller, who created the hydrogen bomb. If anybody had like the ability to get anybody into classified physics projects, it would be Edward Teller. He was the star physicist of the United States. And nobody tops really Edward Teller in terms of like someone's ability to take physics and turn it into like an applicable technology. The hydrogen bomb is pretty big, literally. It was Oppenheimer that worked with Teller on the atomic bomb, and then it was Edward Teller who had the idea for the hydrogen bomb, which is basically you can't have a hydrogen bomb without an atomic bomb, because you basically use an atomic bomb. You use a normal bomb to make an atomic bomb, and then use the atomic bomb to, a chemical bomb, which is basically a normal bomb, just explosives, to create an atomic bomb. And then this is just, I've never made an atomic bomb. But I've read a lot about it, and this is as far as I understand. But you use a chemical bomb to make an atomic bomb, use an atomic bomb then to make a hydrogen bomb. You basically use chemical explosion to create I guess it would be like a fission reaction, and then you use the fission reaction to create a fusion reaction. And so I was blanking on words because it's getting late, but that you can't do one of those, like you can't make a hydrogen bomb without already making like all these things before it. So that's just kind of just an important thing, again, like about technological development to know. But he would be able to get anybody a job in any physics project if anybody could. And the way that they met was confirmed. It's like, it's in the paper that Bob Lazar was on the front page of the paper because it was in the paper for putting a jet engine in his Honda. And Edward Teller was reading it because it was the front page of the Los Alamos paper when Edward Teller was there, that's where they made the atomic bomb. All of that stuff is confirmable. It doesn't matter what his education was prior or whether or not what he said is true about like what they told him about anti-gravity or antimatter or whatever. None of that matters. What matters in terms of as far as our ability to secondhand give evidence to the story is, are we able to line up that piece of information over there with that piece of information over there? Not are multiple people saying the same thing. Are two different people saying two different things, but then are connected and confirming of each other? That is what you're looking for when you're trying to give credibility or assess credibility of a secondhand story. And so I believe Bob Lazar's story about his experience. I don't think that everything that was told to him when he was working there was true. I think they gave him a lot of BS, and who knows if they knew that it was true, what they were telling was true. They allegedly gave him material that said that these beings were from Zeta Reticuli. Like, I think that's BS, to be quite honest. But where'd they get that? But if these Greys could speak English and they said to Bob Lazar's bosses, we came from Zeta Reticuli, they don't know if that's true. They have no idea. But it's, so that kind of stuff doesn't matter. What matters is like the bone scanning thing, the pictures in the Los Alamos paper, his name being in a Rolodex as working at Los Alamos, like his knowledge of Area 51's procedures of getting people in and out, the flights from Vegas to Area 51. Like, he knew all this stuff. And all of that kind of stuff matters more than where did he go to school? And did he try and start a brothel or something? I don't know. But we're going to watch Eric Davis basically dismissing Bob Lazar's story. And I really think Eric Davis I think that people have told him true things, but I really think that he is not somebody who should be. And none of these people, actually, none of these people who are leading the UFO topic, Eric Davis, even what's his name, David Crush, if you know who he is, who testified in front of Congress, and or I don't know what's his name, who was also in a conversation on Jesse's show with Eric Weinstein in the past. Hal Puthoff. Like, I don't think any of those people should be like, if they're the ones who we should listen to on this in this field, then like we shouldn't like this. That sucks. Like, none of them have ever been in allegedly Bob Lazar's position. All of them say the same things that they've heard from the same people, and they just repeat it again and again and again. None of it, all of it is very non-confirmable stuff unless you actually go see it. And yet they say that they know this stuff from with 100% certainty, which just implies that they don't know what it means to know something with 100% certainty. So why should we trust what they say? I don't know. It's not saying that everything they say is wrong. I don't believe that. But I think that like they're just not good sources of information. They're not firsthand. And not only are they not firsthand, they don't seem to know how to judge secondhand very well. And they're probably also being used as sources of disinformation.
Program failed because Deputy Secretary of Defense William Lynn denied it. And that was because Harry Reid did it the wrong way. He did it the wrong way, and that's why it got denied. If we did it the proper way, which I'm trained on in the security apparatus, we would have been more successful. So,
Do you remember Dick Feynman's?
Okay, he's been trained on it, but he's not been let in and given access. That just doesn't make sense, guys. Like, I'm not saying that the programs don't exist. I actually think that they do, but some of them. But that's, you can't claim to be, like, why does your security clearance mean anything if you're not actually given clearance? Like, you're not in the room with this stuff. You have top secret clearance. Okay, for what? Like, to not see these things, to see other stuff that like is not that. Well, okay, then why does your security clearance matter? It really is. It's important that we realize this when we're navigating the subject, because otherwise you're just going to go down rabbit holes and stories that are interesting, and some of them might be true, but you have no idea of knowing. That's why we started with my video, my firsthand experience on the subject. And it does seem to confirm some odd things that Eric seems to think geometric unity allows for. It's like going from that moment to that moment. It's moment jumping. It's moment jumping. Like, it's not just taking advantage of, you're not just maneuvering temporally. You're maneuvering spatially and at the same time. It's what is a single moment in time at a single when a time and a place intersect, it's a moment. Like, and so it's moment jumping. I don't know a better way to describe it. That's the best I can come up with, and we came up with it on the stream, so we actually succeeded in the original goal of coming up with a better way of describing maybe two-time physics or something. Like, that's important. It lets you think about stuff. Like, better. If you have better language, lets you abstractly conceive, because that's how you think about things. That's why humans can do this, is because we can think. We have a bunch of words for different concepts, and we can build them in our minds. Otherwise, if you have no way of differentiating different blocks other than sight, how do you build beyond the moment that you're in? You just can't. That's why animals can't do it. Not even chimps. They have the same, if not better, physical abilities than us. They're just as dexterous. They're stronger. Why are they not creating knives? Because they can't conceive of the need. I've talked about why I call Sentient Singularity Theory, and it's just because it's just in. the name of a theory is even something that you don't choose. If you could choose the name of your theory and you chose the name of your theory is not a theory. You deduce the name of your theory as much as you deduce the substance of your theory, if it's true. And Eric says, he mentions the name of geometric unity, and I thought that was interesting.
Advantages of those two different pictures: gauge equivalence in the case of the standard model, and contraction and a specified Levi-Civita connection. That difference gives two sets of advantages to two different theories. Now, my work, the reason it's called geometric unity, nobody ever asked that question really, is that I said, are there any places where you get to use the advantages of both systems? And the answer turns out to be, well, certainly in general it won't work. But for some completely absurdly narrow class of theories, you get all the benefits of both systems. And
I'm not going to claim to understand everything that he just said because I don't know what a Levi-Civita connector is, or whatever the term was that he said. If you don't know the terms, then you don't know. Then you don't know. I don't speak the language. But I like that he explained that like there's a reason behind the name other than just, I don't know, something that is assumed to be chosen arbitrarily, like string theory. It's actually little strings. Of what? That's my question. Of what? It's I'm trying to wrap up here. There's a lot of things I wanted to touch on that I didn't get to, so I'm trying to think of which ones are most important. But by the way, if Eric ever watches this, I would have asked you that question. Why is it called geometric unity? If you ever come on this channel, I would have asked that question. But okay, let's see here. It's like, oh man, which ones do we want to see? Bob Lazar. Here. They're talking about Bob Lazar in an old video that Bob Lazar put out where he was explaining that, like, basically the strong force, he was just saying in it, it's from the 90s. It's actually fascinating. Even though I don't think that everything that's said in it is true. I do believe that he thinks it's true. Or at least he's very clear. He's like, I don't know if he's like I was told that these beings are from Zeta Reticuli star system. He's like, I have no idea if that's true, but that's what they told me. I believe him that that's what he was told. That's all that matters. We can't confirm it otherwise, and it doesn't really matter. Like if that's true, and by the way, just think about this, like if it's just inevitable that like life pops up in the right circumstances and many different planets all over the world, and then all over the universe, and then technological beings will arise from some of them. And so there's lots of different technological civilizations. Because if there's two, then they're from two different planets, then there's got to be more. And because then it's not about about us. It's about just circumstances that exist all over the place. If that's the case, and there's many different like civilizations, even just more than one, that are capable of this type of travel from capable of getting from one planet to that's a different planet from or a different star system to ours. If that's possible for anyone that came from a different place, not someone that came from here and then now can go anywhere, but someone that came from somewhere else and came here. If that's possible for them, then it would probably be possible for others. Especially if they're trying to stop us from developing it for some reason. But if there's lots of different civilizations, all with warp, it's like, or whatever you want to call it, why would you actively stop one of them if there's already others that exist? It just doesn't make sense. And why would you hide yourselves? Like, I'm not saying that, like, it just doesn't make sense. Why would you hide yourself? Unless you need us to not know. It's more beneficial to you for us to not know. Why would you stifle our technology if it wasn't a benefit to you? Like, it just all implies that these beings are not from another solar system, and also that there's not a bunch of different alien civilizations like Star Trek. It also implies that they're using us for something, that they need us for something, and that they can't do themselves. And I have theories about what that is in my video, UFOs versus WASPs, talking about just convergent evolutionary pressures. And what I think that could be, I have no idea. But like, I don't think that we are in charge of whether or not this stuff gets disclosed, if it's actually real. And I do believe it's real because I saw one. I saw something in the sky that was doing stuff that made no sense, and I filmed it. So did other people in the same day. Like, what am I supposed to say? I don't believe in that stuff. Like, I saw it. That doesn't mean but I have no idea otherwise, like anything else. I mean, I don't want to say I have no idea. I have no firsthand information beyond that. So everything else is either I can do my best to logically deduce it, given other bits of information that I have that is also firsthand, or that's the only way I'm going to potentially get any answers. But it's still a prediction. You don't know until you know. But it's a much better prediction than just like, I was told by people definitively. So that's why I'm 100% sure. Dude, I don't believe my brother if he tells me something like with 100% certainty all the time. Depends on which brother. I have lots of brothers, and it depends on what it's about. But like, you don't know until you experience something firsthand. I think that this subject is more infected with disinformation on levels that are beyond even normal human as we know it, like institutions, and is also just suffering from the same plights as every other field, as well. Like, that's coming from our education academic pipeline. You're never going to know the truth about this subject, is what I'm getting at. If the Greys are the ones in charge of whether or not the government ever tells you anything, you shouldn't trust shit. If the Greys, or whatever they are, tell the government this is the truth, and they landed it out front in the White House, and why would you trust? Why would you trust anything that they say anyways? Like, necessarily, you don't trust the government already, or you shouldn't trust them all the time. It doesn't mean nothing they say is true. It just means, like, it's funny because, in the Roswell crash is such a fascinating thing, because they talk about, like, was the Roswell crash true and a real, like, UFO? And Eric Davis says yes, 100%, basically, which you don't know that, even though I think it probably was something abnormal. But there's also photo evidence that really does look like Project Mogul, which is like what was allegedly like the classified thing that they covered up. Who knows what happened? I wasn't there. I will never know. But what's most interesting to me is that people will say it was the government first. It was the Air Force Base. Well, pre-Air Force Base. It was the Army base, but it was the precursor to the Air Force. It didn't exist at the time. Was the ones that went public and said that they had recovered a UFO or crashed flying saucer. And like beings and stuff. Like, it was the government. It was people working at the base that said that. It was not like someone else. And then they took back their statement, and they still like took all the wreckage and brought it, to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and like the flights are confirmed apparently, which you don't do but they said, oh no, this is just a mix-up. It's a weather balloon, dude. If that was really a weather balloon, if somebody came to the Air Force Base and was like, yo, a UFO just crashed outside my house, and then they were like, okay, I guess we'll go take a look. who the hell is going to show up and see a weather balloon and be like, yeah, let me go tell other people who work at the Air Force Base that you found a UFO, and then they're going to see it, and then they're also going to be like, yeah, we recovered a UFO. It just doesn't make sense. It's kind of insane. And then they say it was, but they said it was a weather balloon until like the 90s. That was like their official stance, the Air Force. And then they were like, no, actually, guys, what really happened is there was this classified program called Project Mogul to detect nuclear explosions. And it was a balloon that held like, classified sensors. And that's what crashed. Okay. And you'll hear people like, anyone who trusts the establishment, take your pick. Ed Shermer, who's like the skeptic, is so funny because like anybody that calls themselves a skeptic is like the least skeptical person usually of the institutions, and he'll say we now know it was Project Mogul. It's like, dude, you would have said we know that it's a weather balloon when they said it was the weather balloon, and you would have said we know it's a UFO when they said it's a UFO, and then when they say no, it's Project Mogul, that's the type of person that's like, yeah, we actually now know it's Project Mogul. It's like, you don't know shit. They've lied to you multiple times and they've admitted it, and now you're still trusting them. It's like the guy who gets caught cheating and then he's like, I will never cheat again. But he gets caught multiple times. And I'm not saying he never stops cheating. I'm just saying, should you trust him as someone who's telling the truth? Probably not. And so that's what I mean is like, you must start with your firsthand experience in every subject, and that includes UFOs. And because of that, you're probably not going to get very far on the subject as far as what you can know. And the government is probably not in charge of what is told to the public, and the people who are in charge, whether they're human or not, do seem to have an incentive or reason for hiding the truth from us now. What would change just because we wanted it to? It's like people have always wanted to call on the government for truth. It's like, but it's not about whether or not we want it. It's about whether or not whoever knows the truth wants to tell the truth, and they don't. And so you shouldn't trust anything that they say. That's my point, I guess. There's more I wanted to talk about. This is a wonderful stream that they did. We've now gone longer than the actual video that is being referenced, per usual. Watch the whole interview of Eric and Eric Davis. I'm glad that they're speaking. I'm not saying anybody is foolishness or idiocy is a moment that we all experience, is not a person. So I'm not trying to rip on Eric Davis as like somebody who is a fool, but just when somebody says who with classified clearance, but not classified clearance to even work firsthand on any of this stuff, says that they know things because somebody told them, you have no reason to trust them over your brother. In fact, you should trust your brother more. Like, and just know that, like that, be aware. It's an interesting subject. It's probably got a lot of truth to it. It's also got a lot of BS, and most of it you will never know unless you are lucky enough to see a UFO flying next to the 210 highway in LA. So anyways, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Just watch their interview. There's other things I wanted to talk about with it, but it was just too late. So peace, I guess. Hope this was interesting.
The particle table of the standard model, and you're exactly in that freak class.